Xavier Worthy.
Welcome to Sikkim 365 Radio.
King to throw for it to the corner. Incomplete. Alabama survives at home.
Sikkim 365 Radio is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Duggan throws it for the end zone. What an adjustment, Tay Barber. That is absolutely insane.
Sikkim 365 Radio is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
They bring in DeAndre Jackson as the big back. They fake to him. Sanders. Did he? He did! Touchdown, Cowboys!
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Kansas State last in the Big 12 on third down. 32%. Martinez heated up. Sheds a hit. Got it downfield, and it's caught by Brooks. Shakes loose. He could go. Phillip Brooks. Goodbye touchdown.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
One of the biggest and most difficult parts of a Monday show during college football, it's not difficult, it's a good thing. How in the world do you tie a bow around what we saw this past weekend? Also look ahead to this week, and so much to get to today. And we'll try to do that, including what could be a candidate at a college program sometime in the next few months, and Matt Rhule being fired by Carolina, the former Temple and Baylor coach. But that's like down the list, although it does matter. Craig Smoak to my right, Paul Catalina to my left, Emery and Jack and Jacob is here. Thinking Garrett Ross is out today with one of his children not feeling very well, so thinking about him and the family today as well. I don't even know where to start, but let's start with this. Texas just humiliated Oklahoma. TCU went into Kansas and kept their unbeaten season alive. Kansas State found a way. Oklahoma State found a way. What am I missing?
It was another Big 12-esque weekend other than the blowout in Dallas. I mean, everything was close. Everything was, teams are right there. Tech had Oklahoma State on the ropes, and Oklahoma State, figured out that they were the better and more experienced team and then pulled away and won that game at home. The Oklahoma thing goes to show you, there are myths that we all, about our favorite teams, choose to believe. And I think what Oklahoma fans optimistically were telling themselves, that it doesn't matter that it's a whole new coaching staff. It doesn't matter that we have more turnover at this program and 40 new players and all these different things. Brent Venables will be good. Everything will work out. Well, sometimes there's transition and it takes time. And this is a program that doesn't know itself very well right now. It doesn't know really what it's doing on both sides of the ball completely and has some injuries. And we're seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the game you have to start with. Not that it was the best game, because it wasn't. Might not have been the most viewed. It might have been, though. It might not have been this or that, but it was probably the most interesting just because of what it could mean moving forward. That's a season changer for Texas, and that's a season changer for Oklahoma. For Texas, you knew that you were a little less than 100% without your starting quarterback, but that you were managing and navigating along pretty well, other than that Texas Tech game where you just kind of let that go at the end and you just didn't finish. But you should have won that game. And now, I wonder how much of a thorn that will be in their side depending on what they do the rest of the way. But that's what's interesting, is now everybody's talking about, oh gosh, like, how good is Texas really? And man, look at that schedule. Like, who is going to jump up and beat them? And, on the one hand, I agree that, there's reasons to wonder, like, man, how good could they really be? At the same time, I do think we have to realize, like, Oklahoma's now had performances like this, other than the shutout aspect of it, for 3 straight weeks. Like, they've been getting demolished by everybody they played. So I think we all saw that coming. Like, I think we all saw the blood in the water, and we all knew that Ewers was probably going to be back, and it set up to be the perfect manuscript for Longhorn football fans, as far as a Saturday in Dallas goes against your arch rival. It's not possible for that to have been written any better than it was for UT fans. So that was a long time coming for them. They haven't had a lot to cheer about as far as that game in particular goes. And then what's following that for a long time now, when they have beaten Oklahoma recently, outside of, that Sugar Bowl run, it's been kind of like the highlight of their season, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case this year because they could have a lot more highlights if they play as well as they did on Saturday. But, I do wonder how much of that is also the competition, and that's when you look at Oklahoma. So, for UT, I expect the excitement level is probably the highest it's been in several years. For Oklahoma, there's no doubt the disappointment level is the lowest it's been, or the highest it's been in well over 2 decades.
Right before Stoops was hired, when you had Snellenberger and John Blake.
And the problem for them is that whereas Texas can wonder what if in terms of, what if we had Quinn Ewers, and I think that question needs to go away. We've seen it far too much already. I get the conversation, but let's win more games and then we can have that conversation. But while they've kind of got that's their biggest question to have to answer really, and now they have all this excitement looking forward to the rest of the schedule and what could be for Oklahoma fans. Looking at the rest of that schedule and worrying about what could be and worrying about just how bad it could get because there are more losses out there. And it's just a matter of how bad and one-sided could those losses be. Are there more UT-type losses out there? Are there more K-State-type losses out there? There might be. And so I'm just very curious on their end to see how bad it gets or whether or not they're able to correct course because, man, that was all-time bad on Saturday for one team and all-time good for the other. And they're seemingly going in different directions. But, man, it's really fascinating to see with 2 months still left to go where that might lead them both.
Yeah, it is. There's a poll up. Will TCU make the Big 12 title game? That is up right now for you to vote on. A bunch of you already in the chat room. So here are, and I tried to do this on Monday. The Big 12, Kansas State's 3-0. They have the week off. Oklahoma State, TCU will play each other in Fort Worth. They're both at 2-0. KU drops to 2-1. They had the Jalen Daniels fumble at the goal line, which was a big-time play, and then he went out. But at the same time, TCU is good, and they kind of reiterated that. And we'll see again as this thing plays out. Texas 2-1, and they have Iowa State at home. Baylor in action against West Virginia. Baylor 1-1. That's this Thursday. Tech is off. West Virginia, as I mentioned, Thursday. Iowa State and Oklahoma and West Virginia have yet to win a Big 12 game. Let's go to the. I got a stat or two about Oklahoma. Brent Venables, the first Oklahoma coach to debut 0-3 in conference play. OU has lost more than 3 conference games 7 times in 108 years of conference play. That goes back to when they were a part of the Missouri Valley Conference in the Big Six. They had scored an offensive touchdown in 167 consecutive games, the longest streak in the FBS. That now is over. And during their 3-game losing streak, this is the one that's just, wow. 145 points, nearly 50 points a game, and nearly 1,800 yards they've allowed. That's nearly 600 yards per game. Those are staggering numbers. Staggering numbers.
Yeah, and that's why I said in talking about it just a second ago of, yes, I understand where a lot of UT fans are coming from with all the, well, what if we, that kind of thing. But I think the bigger thing is Oklahoma's now done that for nearly a month straight. Mm-hmm. They played absolutely poorly for a month straight, basically. And there are no signs that that's getting better. Okay, Dylan Gabriel might come back. All right, well, you'll at least be able to score some points. But that was embarrassing on Saturday. The fact that that's the best that they could trot out there offensively is embarrassing for that program. I mean, I understand that with the portal and coaching changes and all of that, hey, you lost Caleb Williams and you lost a bunch of other guys. I understand, but, I mean, that was just an all-time questionable just showing in a lot of different ways. And, I think the defense still remains highly problematic. I understand there's a lot of talk about how complicated the system is and it's going to take time. And I know that there's talent issues and things like that. But, I mean, I don't want to hear on one hand, we're Oklahoma, and that's why we don't need Lincoln Riley. We don't need these guys. We'll be fine. We're Oklahoma. And, at the same time, yeah, you're Oklahoma. You shouldn't be as down bad as you seemingly are right now. So there are some major questions. This is one of those where you almost wish you could fast forward to the offseason to go ahead and answer some of those questions. But unfortunately for them, and maybe fortunately in some cases, they could correct the ship somewhat, but they're out of the race now. Like, they can play spoiler, but they're not going to be in that Big 12 title game for another year. It was second year in a row now.
Yep.
And, that's something I think that when the whole SEC announcement happened, there was a lot of Oklahoma fans that are like, psh, Big 12 championships, like, whatever. We win those all the time. Remember that? Like, and I don't want to see anybody denying that because that was absolutely factual. It was like, psh, the Big 12. Like, we've won a billion titles. Like, who cares? And I said at the time, like, be careful what you wish for. Like, yeah, you're going to be richer. Well, wait, no, not you. The school is going to be richer. So I guess you might have a more comfortable seat, and that's how it eventually trends down towards you. But, you take certain things for granted, like winning as consistently as they did. And I know that the end result wasn't what they always wanted it to be, and that's part of why they felt this move was necessary. But, yeah, they're going to make a lot more money. But they also very well might turn to the next South Carolina or Arkansas or whatever, and I don't think that's going to happen. But there are reasons and there's room to wonder about that right now because it's not in a good place, and they don't have a lot of time before, for all the talk about the schedule. Well, guess what? You're struggling bad enough with this one. You know what's waiting on you, right? And you know what's around the corner.
Yeah.
And this season's far from over as it is. So
the SEC has elite teams in Alabama, Georgia, and now Tennessee appears to be a part of that conversation as well. But top to bottom, no matter who you are as your favorite comp, top to bottom, I don't know. We won't know till all of it's all played out. But top to bottom right now, to me, you don't have any gimmies in the Big 12.
No, you don't.
And so who knows what's going to happen the rest of the way.
And Craig, to your point about where Oklahoma, this isn't supposed to happen, there are many teams that were saying, we are this team.
We're Texas.
We're Texas. We're USC. We're Florida. We're Florida State. We're Miami. It's never going to. We're Nebraska. It's never going to happen. And they've all been in the support group. How did this happen to us? The college football feast and famine it comes for everybody. People have.
But they'd experienced it in the 90s.
They did, but it can always come back.
Yeah, no.
It's not. Alabama is as great as anything has ever had, and they're the program with the two greatest eras. They have three great eras because they have three coaches that have always won there, but they've had their droughts. People forget how bad it was, where they were just running through coaches, and Mike Price is off, getting lappers on the university credit card. It was bad. It was bad at Alabama. The right guy comes in, and all of a sudden the crops are flush, but you can have droughts everywhere. Nobody is immune to it, and the reason you have droughts is that you think, I don't need to water the lawn enough because we are this team.
One of the teams that has been through that, and they have had what has been disappointing a decade plus, Texas. Craig mentioned the one Sugar Bowl team that beat OU in the regular season, but we've seen this with them before. There does appear to be, without jumping off the cliff too quickly, that this might be sustainable. And I have a conversation with Earl Campbell here around the corner. We have been fooled by them before, and now the question is, can they sustain it? Because that was a very impressive across-the-board victory against their arch rival on Saturday in Dallas.
Yeah, and I know we got, new listeners and whatnot, so I'm coming from like an OU fan standpoint, to be very clear here. Like, I'm not coming at it as like some hater or what. I'm coming at it as somebody who watches every Saturday, who has fans has a family up in Norman I visit regularly. Like, I mean, I've seen it up close and personal, and I'm throwing up the red flag. Like, I'm worried about kind of what direction this thing is going. At the same time, I do think we have to be mindful of the fact that Venables is a first-year head coach, and I'm going to get to Texas here in a second, and not overly panic too much. But there's cracks in the ship. That's the scary part is they've never really dealt with too many cracks before. Now there's like massive gash in the side of the Sooner ship, and then that's what's concerning. Now Venables could still patch it up. He could make some tweaks this offseason. Transfer portal can revamp your roster in a hurry. But the problem is we're halfway through this season. And how bad is it going to get before they're able to do that? So that's what I'm curious about now. As for Texas, they have certainly fooled us in the past. I mean, Tyrone Swoop's running into the end zone against Notre Dame, and they're back, and we know that famous call, and they were nowhere close to being back at that moment. The Sugar Bowl team with Sam Ehlinger was as close as they got, but there he was, we're back, and that came back to haunt him again. So I guess you just have to be thankful that like Quinn Ewers didn't take the mic and say we're back after that game, because that would have been probably the curse for them. They are going to play much tougher teams because, again, I think we have to all acknowledge, and even Texas fans will acknowledge, that was probably the worst OU team we've seen in 20+. I mean, that was. So, you blew them out. You did your job. I'm not taking away from the win, but that wasn't beating the typical Oklahoma that's a top 10 team, like, that would propel you into the the major conversation. The good news for Texas is that all they got to do is just win a couple games, and they'll get propelled in that conversation no matter who they beat. And so here we are, and they're starting to knock on the door of that conversation. And I think it's fair this time. I do. I think Quinn Ewers is special. My whole thing with him all offseason and hearing about Quinn Ewers this, Quinn Ewers that I was just so tired of hearing about the money side of it. What did I say? Like, I just want to see him play. I just want to see him play before I crown him king QB1 of all of college football. And now having seen him play even a fraction of what we probably should have seen by this point because of his injury, yeah, I'm there with you on the hype train. He's unbelievable. He has the flick of the wrist. The flick. I think flick might have been the most popular word on Twitter during Saturday's game because of how effortlessly he throws the football. Effortlessly might have been the second most popular word while that game was going on because of the way he throws the football. Combine him and his talent and his poise and just a guy who seems like he's been playing for 4 years at this level, in games like this constantly, and not a bead of sweat on his forehead. I mean, cool as a cucumber and mega talented. He's the real deal. I do, wonder if, he can have the same types of performances, and I assume he will be able to, but I am curious to see him against defenses that actually put some pressure on him because I didn't see Oklahoma doing that a whole lot on Saturday. Can maybe be a bit more disruptive, but even then, he's the type of guy that seems like he'll deal with whatever comes his way pretty well. He's special, and I think because of him and because of the talented skill guys they have around him, this is legit. This is legit. I think there's, I don't know about national championship and playoff team and all of that. I still could see them losing a couple games along the way, but I could also see a scenario where they don't. And we have a really interesting conversation at the end of the year because he makes a world of difference. And I thought Hudson Card was playing pretty well, but Ewers he's special. He is. There's no doubt about that to the trained or untrained eye. So if you're a UT fan right now, I think you're just really pleased with the direction and everything the way that it is currently set up. And you have every right to be super optimistic with the rest of this remaining schedule. And let's just see how it plays out. But I think this isn't a false flag this time. I actually think there's a little substance to this whole Texas is not back, but they're pretty good.
Yeah, just don't even use the word back. In fact, a Texas fan on the chat room saying that they fooled me before, but hook them.
Sure. Yeah. They could be still pretty good and lose one more game, maybe even two this year because of the conference. But, I think we're seeing things from this Texas team we haven't seen from the others. It's sustainable. They don't have –
What do you mean? They were 5-2 at one point last year, weren't they?
Yeah, but they were – I think they were kind of teetering on the brink. They bought it. The culture's changing. I think Steve Sarkisian
if they allow it to and they give him time to do that because it's not going to happen overnight.
No. The culture's changing in the locker room,
right? Yeah,
where it matters the most. Now the culture in the stands, I mean, who knows?
I remember at Big 12 Media Days, Oklahoma State reporter that we were talking to on the very last day, it was like the way we closed it out, basically came over and said that he thought that Texas was in a world of trouble because he thought that they were a little bit too loosey-goosey at Media Days. Y'all remember that? Mm-hmm. A little too NIL-driven, a little too happy, joy, whatever. And I didn't really know what to make of it because I hadn't paid much attention to those guys walking around. Like, we'd interviewed Bijan. I thought he was great. I certainly didn't think of, inflated ego or anything like that. I became a fan of his, so I didn't necessarily see that, but, you wondered, that's what you wonder with that program is if that ever creeps in, and I don't think it's creeped in right now. I think that they've, got a big boost from Ewers, and I think that the Patterson thing obviously has made a huge difference for them defensively. To what degree? I don't know how much he deserves credit, but certainly some, and I just think Sarkisian's done a great job of, navigating the NIL stuff, navigating a couple of problems early on like a Jaiye Hall, and just managing the talent. And if they can stay the course and stay focused, they're a dangerous team. But, there's still a long way to go.
And a very young but gifted, no question about it, offensive line. Okay, other things happened as well, but that was obviously one that caught everybody's attention. We're going to get into Kansas State and their win. It was a grinded-out game, but they got it done. TCU and also their game with Kansas. Oklahoma State, Baron Morton, I was incredibly impressed with that young man. And so much more to get to. We'll come back and do that next on 365 Sports, including just a glance at some notes in college football elsewhere and around the top 25. This is 365 Sports.
During Jeep Adventure Days, Allen Samuels in Waco is celebrating with an incredible lineup of 2022 models like the Grand Cherokee L, Renegade, Wrangler, and the Wrangler 4xe. These vehicles bring power to plow through any obstacles or the smooth, peaceful ride you'd expect from a Jeep. Jeep SUVs are also known for their design and technology. The Grand Cherokee L even brings you extended seating with a third row. Come see what Allen Samuels can offer you and your family and find the Jeep SUV that fits your lifestyle.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Cam Heathcott, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Cam Heathcott, covering Conroe and Houston, 936-756-7717 or cam.heathcott@edwardjones.com. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select Choice and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Super Chat, Uncultured Barbarian, and we're going to get to the top 25 in a minute. I know that it was only one game, but the Badgers looked and felt different with Jim Leonard at the helm and Bobby Ingram on the sideline. We will kind of look at a lot of those different things. Now, top 25, Georgia, Ohio State, Bama, Clemson, Michigan, whatever order you want to put them in. Oklahoma State is 7 or 8, TCU 13 or 15. Congratulations, and I owe UCLA an apology. I did not think they would win this weekend. I was wrong. They were the better team. Utah was good, but UCLA 11 and 12. Mississippi State moves up 6 and 7 in both polls. K-State, KU, Cincinnati with a tough one with Gary Bohannon in South Florida, USF if they win. Texas 23 or 24. Baylor unranked or 23. Brigham Young out of both. Kentucky drops 9 after the loss to South Carolina. Utah drops 8 or 9, depending on which poll. That's kind of a summary of the top 25.
Yeah, I was surprised. We all owe UCLA an apology. They proved something this week, and Chip Kelly over his career has proven when he's got a quarterback, you don't want to mess with them, man.
But they have transfers on defense that are making them. He gave up some points, but they do seem to have much more oomph to them on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I kind of was leaning towards the fact that Chip Kelly might have been past his prime, but maybe not. And they still got a long way to go. But yeah, it's impressive that they are where they are right now.
Yeah, I immediately noticed that you had who was that? Kentucky and Mississippi State just basically swapped places.
Yeah, that's that bubble. That's that SEC bubble.
That SEC bubble. I know SEC fans, chill out. A lot of good teams, best conference, all that stuff. I think the Big 12 is very entertaining this year, but there is a bubble that exists with these top 25 rankings. That's why it's always a talking point for people every single week. You just kind of see how the rankings are massaged. But hey, good win for Mississippi State.
Back-to-back wins.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm not knocking them moving up. It's just funny kind of how it works sometimes. But yeah, I think UCLA proved a lot to a lot of people. I think if you watch them. They're a super talented team. Like not only DTR quarterback, you got Charbonnet at running back. I mean, they've got some players, and I remember watching them a bit last year, and it never could all just gel together. And this year, started to hear a little bit of hype about them, and the players ring familiar. Like, okay, yeah, they got some of their stars back, and Chip Kelly, like, can he find some of that magic? And they're not just doing it by blowing people out of the water, like you said, but they're more of a complete team. But yeah, they're no doubt legit, and that was impressive to beat Utah. The other night, I picked Utah. That was the game that I got wrong, certainly, and I just felt like Utah might be a little nastier, a little more physical, kind of like we've known them to be, and that just wasn't necessarily the case. So I think that was a great test for the Bruins to pass and to show a little not only finesse but a little toughness as well. And yeah, I think everybody's got to pay attention to them moving forward. And all of a sudden, it makes UCLA, USC potentially really fun eventually, and some of the rest of the Pac-12 race, which is kind of a tight-knit cluster as well. The SEC's what it is and what it's always going to be. The Big 12, like we've mentioned, is highly competitive, but the Pac-12's got a good little race going on itself.
They have Oregon in 2 weeks and then USC towards the end of the year on the 19th. But outside of that, they got Stanford, Arizona State, Arizona, and California left on there.
Let me put Oregon and UCLA and USC have given, and Utah's in that conversation in the top 25, have given the Pac-12. They needed that. They needed some in the conversation.
Two of those teams are leaving.
I watched quite a bit of the USC game with Washington State, with Caleb Williams and all the weapons he has. Very entertaining game. Now, go to not Chris Felica, but Brett McMurphy on the teams who have been ranked. Here's Brett McMurphy. In the last 2 weeks, Kansas and now Illinois ranked in the top 25, ending the longest Power 5 droughts. The current longest droughts since the AP poll. Now, Rutgers from 2012 has remained unranked. Oregon State, I thought maybe they tapped on that door. No, since 2013. And Vanderbilt. Those now are the longest droughts of not being ranked among FBS schools since in the last 10 years. And so Kansas and Illinois ended those droughts. Now, bangers this weekend. Penn State, Michigan, unbeatens. Alabama, Tennessee,
easily
unbeatens.
The biggest threat that Michigan's faced so far. Yeah. Like they played nobody, but
Bama, Tennessee, Syracuse, and NC State remain unbeaten. Mississippi State, Kentucky, USC, and Utah. Utah, of course, has a couple of losses, but those are some of the bangers. Now, Chris Felica, ESPN, Saturday, for the second time in college football history, there are 3 matchups of teams 5-0 or better on the same day. The ones I mentioned, Penn State, Michigan, Alabama, Tennessee, Oklahoma State at TCU. Now, there's one more note that he adds to this. The last time, Paul, this is back when you and I could enjoy college football. In 1993, Florida State beat Virginia. Nebraska beat Kansas State. Auburn beat Florida. Those were all 3 games. Everybody was unbeaten. It's been since 1993, almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's
long time ago. There's some really good bangers, though.
Almost 30 years ago.
Clemson, Florida State could be interesting. Florida State after that disastrous ending to NC State. Arkansas, Brigham Young, 2 teams that need a win. And then also LSU, Florida, some good ones, names in the SEC, 2 teams, again, that need a win. Now, to our picks over the weekend. We always have this as evidence. The graphic that Levi puts up. These were our picks. Paul had Kansas, could have, but they didn't. TCU wins. Everybody across the board may have been the easiest game to pick last weekend.
No question, it was the easiest game to pick last weekend. No, not even a contest.
Oklahoma, and they handled the expectations. Oklahoma State, this thing was back and forth. Tech was really good. Baron Morton, very impressed with him. Oklahoma State just eventually separated. The Utah game, that's why we apologize to UCLA. We missed that across the board. I did not feel good about Brigham Young, but I thought maybe. Paul, why?
I just thought I just didn't see it from Notre Dame.
Did not happen.
They woke up.
Notre Dame looked good. Their tight end, is it Meyer?
Yeah.
He is freaking a beast. Iowa State, Kansas State. This could have gone either way.
So I would like to point out, and if you go back to the tape, you can see this. I've never been more mad that I was exactly right almost about Iowa State, and I was damn exactly right about NC State. I told you exactly how that would go down. Iowa State, I knew it was a bad matchup for Kansas State, and it proved out to be that. An 81-yard touchdown pass is the difference in that game. Iowa State, the whole state of Iowa should be ashamed of the way they play offense.
They're terrible.
They should, not get to even look at a real football until they figure it out.
Iowa had a 1st and goal sometime this past weekend, like at the 5 or 6 yard line, and punted from about the 38.
Yeah.
So those were the picks. Craig went, 6-1?
Let him finish.
Go ahead. Yeah. So going back to NC State, I told you what was going to undo Florida State is they don't have a kicker. They don't trust him. And they got down to a point where they could have, if they had a kicker they trusted, won the game. It was the decision to throw the ball and try to score a touchdown, which I don't disagree with. Ryan Fitzgerald's just been all over the map. And so they didn't trust the kicker in that situation, and it led them to that decision. And that's why they lost the game. NC State this week against Syracuse is going to be interesting. They're going to be playing with their backup quarterback, a transfer from Charleston Southern, because Devin Leary got lit up in that game. Is going to be out for a little bit. We'll see what happens against Syracuse and Dino Babers. But, yeah, that was the game I nailed it, and I was so mad at myself for nailing it.
What were you going to say?
I was gonna bring up one other thing. That's okay. You have anything else from the games we just mentioned from Pick'em? You went 6-1. I was 5-2. Paul went 3-4.
Yeah, can you throw that back up there, Jacob? If you can't, don't worry about it. But that was very.
By the way, the records underneath our names is prior to the weekend, and so those things will improve just a little bit. Go ahead.
And we don't do like the spread like some can do. We just done it head up, so that it is what it is. But I feel pretty good about going 6-1. Certainly thought a little bit about UCLA, Utah, and debated a little bit in my mind of whether UCLA was for real or not, and just ultimately decided no, I think Utah will be too physical and whatnot, and that wasn't the case. So I'll own that one. But feel good about the rest of them. But BYU Notre Dame looked like a game that could have gone the other way up until late. Iowa State, K-State, same thing. NC State, Florida State, same thing. Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, same thing. Kansas, TCU, same thing. So outside of Oklahoma, Texas, that could have been like 1-6 versus 6-1 very easily.
All right, now one note on Tennessee. As they play Alabama this week, and Bryce Young, according to Nick Saban, again, did not play in that game with A&M, and that's another story because of the final play. The 40-13 win of LSU on Saturday was Tennessee's most lopsided road victory against an AP nationally ranked team since 1995 when they beat Alabama, who was ranked number 12. Tennessee and Josh Heupel have some it factor. Will be really fun to watch because Alabama – Milroe, the young kid, fumbled twice, drew an interception. They also had another fumble from McClellan, Jace McClellan. That was a lot more entertaining than anybody could have imagined. Anybody could have imagined.
In an ugly way.
In an ugly way.
Yeah,
no, it was.
Not in a efficient shootout way, but more of in like, oh, God, who's going to throw up on themselves next type of way.
Yeah. And Alabama, I started thinking maybe all of a sudden Jimbo's got their number because of last year.
Sure.
And they kind of threw up on themselves.
That play call.
Haynes King, the last play, I saw a couple of NFL analysts talk about how he threw a terrible pass and he just doesn't have. I thought, maybe I'm wrong, that Haynes King, I'm not saying what he does going forward, I thought he grew up a little bit in that game because he took a beating. It wasn't pretty. It was not Picasso or Mona Lisa, but I thought he at least grew up a little bit in that game, but still, man, A&M's offense has so much to get done.
He might have thrown a horrible pass, but
there was no way, even if he was uncovered, he catches that in the end zone.
But that was a very low percentage play anyway.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. You don't have to necessarily throw the ball in that play. There's 3 seconds and you lose. If you don't
Should have
get
been
it,
6 seconds. That was another thing, but
okay, even still, they have one play, 6 seconds, like even maybe 2 if they got super lucky. But
maybe they call a different play if they would have had the 6.
Yeah, so maybe they call a different play if they have the 6. But either way, you have 3 seconds and you know this. So really, the entire playbook, which apparently with Jimbo Fisher is not that big, is open to you, or it's too thick. What Nick Saban did during that timeout, I think, was what separates Nick Saban from the other guys. Nick Saban probably told his defense very little in that time. They probably didn't say anything. He probably just waited for Jimbo Fisher to go, oh, crap. He knows what I'm going to do. Let me go through my gigantic playbook and throw something else out. When the thing you should have done, Jimbo, is you have one playmaker for sure in that offense. His name is Devin Achane. You give him the damn ball and let your
even
stars
if it's on a little
shine.
pass in the flat or something. Yeah.
He wasn't even in the route. He was blocking. Blocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a questionable decision in that moment, but it is what it is. You know, you only have so much, I guess, time and so many plays to go to. I'll give, the multi-million-dollar head coach the benefit of the doubt versus me sitting here. But at the same time, you get paid a lot of money to come up with more creative plays than what you threw out there. That just seemed like it was a rushed decision and just do this. And, it didn't work. I felt like that was an awfully deflating way to end that football game for A&M. They had – and they still have a lot of reasons to hold their head up high, not, good losses and things like that. I think that's when you can get in danger is thinking that way. That was a tough loss, no doubt about it. But I think what was good about it was that you went toe-to-toe with the king, and you did it somewhat shorthanded. Now, granted, they were somewhat shorthanded too. Milroe, instead of Bryce Young, made a difference in that game. I don't think there's any question about that. So that's probably why that game was as close as it was Bryce Young not playing. But I still give A&M a lot of credit because they're clearly undermanned compared to who they were playing, and they were in a tough environment. And, that was big moments for Haynes King to have to play in and respond to. And he did more often than he didn't. And it was a tough way to lose. I think there'll be some sleepless nights as far as that last sequence of events goes. But I do think if you're A&M, if you were going to lose, that was about the best way you could have lost versus the alternatives like what Oklahoma had happen this past weekend.
Yeah. All right. I try to do this every day when we can. We can't get to all the comments, but Troy Yount opened it up with us today. I believe that Paxton was in early. K. Hustle, West Virginia guy, Red Wine 65, Carl Page, R.A. Johns, Chris Nelson, Nohemi, Bells Gestar, Roger the Dodger, so many of you, Casey Johnson, Donnell Johnson, A-Run 715, Bevo, YFNA, all of you, Mike Games, Ted, TJ Reed, Devil Frog, thank you all for being a part of the chat room. We cannot get to everybody that we want to. Matt Rhule today fired by the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, that's not a surprise. I was wondering when we were going to talk about this because obviously we're fans of Matt Rhule, as a person and as a football coach. Got to spend a good bit of time, being around him, listening to him here in Waco. And that was an unfortunate sequence of events that brought his tenure to a close, being in New Orleans for the Sugar Bowl, and everybody kind of, excited about where this program was headed in the direction, but everybody kind of not able to go fully into the water. It's like you had 1 foot in and you couldn't fully dive in because you knew that, the pool was leaving soon. Like they were basically about to pour concrete into the pool if he left for an NFL job, which he inevitably did. It was just, I guess, surprising that it was the Panthers and not the Jets because that was the big rumor was that he would head to New York. But ultimately when you saw what David Tepper offered him, as much control as he was given, as much money as he was given, it seemed like a no-brainer, and he could not have picked a better spot to start, his NFL head coaching career. Now, having said that, that was when the honeymoon ended, was when all the fun stuff, was finished, and you actually had to go out there and coach and, put this team out there on the field as a product, and it just never worked. It just never did. Could never find the right quarterback. Your stars weren't really your stars as often as they needed to be for one reason or another, and just some coaching mistakes as well. I don't know exactly what went wrong and how it went wrong in what fashion, because I'm not a Panthers beat writer and they could, shine more light on exactly how it unfolded. But from a distance, it just never seemed to really have a lot of positive momentum outside of like the opening press conference. And I hate that for him. I hate that for so many of those guys who are on staff here at Baylor. Big fans there. Saw Phil Snow got let go. Yeah. Ed Foley got let go, and I'm sure there will be others. So I hate that for them. But, I mean, who are we fooling? We respect and like Matt Rhule, but, I mean, who are we fooling? That was a business decision, and I understand the Carolina business decision in this instance.
The $63 million deal. Let's see. No, I'm sorry. He has like $40 million they expect, and their numbers could change a little bit. About $40 million still left on what they will pay him. Someone put up a tweet like $800 and some $1,000 a month for the next 4 years or whatever it might be. It didn't work. I like him. I know Baylor fans got tired of the drama every year, and I get that. He was here during a time when Baylor needed stability. He gave them that. Jim Grobe gave them that, but then he gave them that as well. But the flirtation did get under the skin of a lot of different people. Yeah. I saw today either thank you for your time and helping us extend from one generation or era to another, which is now Dave Aranda, and then yet again, goodbye, we never could trust you. I will remember him for opportunities to have a chance to visit with him whenever I did.
Yeah. I think Jim Grobe was the guy who showed up in the ambulance. Matt Rhule was the doctor who rehabilitated it. And Dave Aranda's the guy who could potentially do a lot of great.
He runs the hospital.
He runs the hospital. But Matt Rhule never got an offensive coordinator that worked for him. They never found a way. One, I think they got in their head about Christian McCaffrey's injuries, and they tried to change that too much. They were never utilizing him the right way. They were never using their dynamic offensive players the right way. More importantly, they never found a quarterback, so it doesn't matter who your offensive coordinator is. If none of those guys are good, you can't win in the league, and that's what undid him. He will go back to college. He will do his Pete Carroll thing and probably win somewhere else, and hopefully the next NFL job he gets, which I believe there'll be another NFL job for him, will be better because he's a really smart guy and he'll figure it out, but this one was just not in the cards.
Vegas odds right now, and I don't think it'll be Nebraska, but they're right now the one with the most. And then Auburn, Wisconsin. Auburn's still open. I understand. Wisconsin, Arizona State.
I don't see
Colorado,
Auburn,
Stanford, Oklahoma, A&M, and then any other NFL team that's going to be firing somebody between now and the end of the year and also at the end of the year.
Yeah, I can see him in Nebraska. Auburn doesn't seem like a great fit to me. I don't know why exactly. Just off the page, it just doesn't seem like that would – this seems very oil and water-ish. But, yeah, I mean, he'll have options. There's no doubt. There's more college jobs that are going to open up, too. I mean, we're only halfway through the season, and we've already had a bunch open up. But there will be more. And, he can be selective to some extent because he's made some really good money. And if he wants to take a year off to do whatever, he could do that. But if he wants to get back into coaching, there will be a landing spot for him, no doubt about it.
Greg McElroy, and then we get to Earl Campbell. Yeah, you have that tweet. I've been told there are very few college football jobs that Matt Rhule would take, none of which are open currently and are unlikely to come open this year. Money changes everything, but with the offset of his Panthers contract, he'll be in no hurry. My bet he's on television in 2023.
I can see that, and I said this the last time with we brought up Matt Rhule, and I mean this respectfully, but everybody thought he was going to go to the New York Jets just because, he's not even from New York. There was the misconception by dumb Baylor fans, quite frankly, in a certain corner of the fandom that were just like, he's from Jersey. He's from, that whole stupid thing. But, he was very calculated in taking that Panthers job because he didn't just rush to the first NFL job that was open or that was offered to him. He waited for a great opportunity. And I assume, and I said this, I guess, 2 or 3 weeks ago, that he'll do the same thing with college football. He's not just going to go grab the first job because it's open. He will find not only a place that, wants to invest in the program, but will be willing to do some things or whatever they feel is needed. And he's going to go somewhere where he believes he can win and he can recruit and, have the best chance. And that's what everybody would want and everybody could ask for. So, yeah, he'll have the luxury of, being able to sit back and kind of see the landscape and find out which spot is best for him. But I certainly don't believe he's just going to come rushing back and give me Arizona State. Give me that. I think he'll be smart with it.
I was always told that if he ever got back into coaching, he's going to go to a place where there is talent within miles or so around wherever he decides to be. At Baylor, despite what it was at the time, and they did have some talent on the team from the Art Briles era, there was still talent every single direction you look. That's why it will be interesting about Nebraska or Wisconsin or elsewhere of what he looks at because of where they are located. When we come back, Earl Campbell, Hall of Famer at every single level imaginable. His thoughts about UT and what they did to Oklahoma, Bijan and Roschon and Quinn Ewers and much more, and a lot about life and conversations he's had about it with Steve Sarkisian. Next on 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick, GMC, Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on, not only for a great deal, for whatever vehicle you're looking for, that they have on the lot, of course, but also for service after you buy your vehicle. I didn't even buy my vehicle originally from Richard Carr, but they've been the people that I can count on, gotten a couple of fender benders that weren't my fault, but regardless, you got to go get your car fixed, and that was the place that I went, and they took very good care of me, had my car turned around in no time at all, and couldn't even notice that there was any damage done either time once they got done. So haven't bought my car there, but I will best believe be buying my next car from Richard Carr after the customer service that I've received. But for those of you just in the market, well, the wait is over. They've got GMC trucks, GMC SUVs, all on the lot right now. It's been a little bit of a problem. Supply chain issues and things like that have been disrupting car dealerships across the country, but they've got trucks and SUVs on the lot. 2022 Sierras, Acadias, and Terrains are waiting for you to test drive today. They've also got Cadillac XT4 and XT5 SUVs available for a test drive, but inventory is going fast, so get there now for the best selection. And maybe the exact truck or SUV you're looking for is not on the lot. You can get on their inbound vehicle list. And basically what that does is it lets you cut in line for trucks that are in production but not quite in stock, or SUVs or cars for that matter. Or if you don't see what you're looking for and you don't see anything that's coming up that will be arriving soon that is really up your alley, well, let them help you design the exact truck or SUV you want, and Richard Carr will have GMC prioritize it for you. So again, they're all about that customer service. New trucks on the lot, dozens of quality pre-owned cars and trucks in stock as well if you're not looking to buy new. All pre-owned vehicles have gone through a 172-point inspection, and they have multiple lending options. Richard Carr says yes when others say no. So for 23 years in Central Texas, the dealership that's built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Richard Carr, run by proud Wacoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Make a winning drive to Genco and refinance your vehicle. Every loan can skip monthly payments for 90 days with rates as low as 3.75% APR for 48 months. Right now is the time to make a play. At Genco, we save you money by helping you pay less for your car. Every loan scores no payments for 90 days. Then have a chance to win 3 more months of no payments. Apply online today for an additional discount of 0.15% off our already low rates, subject to credit approval, membership eligibility, and loan policies. For more information, go to GencoFCU.org. Member NCUA.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online, pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T is board-certified physician consultations, will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Boots add protection. Good boots help you climb better and move forward faster. And when your son or daughter steps into the boots of a U.S. Army officer, they also learn how to lead. In these boots, they'll gain more confidence with expert training in one of more than 150 occupational specialties. In these boots, they'll stand a little taller and lead a team with diverse backgrounds and areas of expertise to successfully accomplish whatever challenge comes next. In these boots, they'll earn respect with valuable experience from day one that will give them solid footing for success into the future. Highly qualified candidates who earn a spot on our team can receive comprehensive health care coverage, college tuition assistance, and a bonus of up to $40,000. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
We're joined by the Hall of Famer at every level imaginable, high school, college, and pro. The great Earl Campbell joins us on 365 Sports. What did you think of your Horns, the Longhorns, Saturday with what they did to Oklahoma and who they are right now?
First of all, I think they did a great job. And I think what we at the university need to start doing is giving Coach Stadium and his coaching staff what they're doing. I think there's more respect. I think we have a great coach at the university. I think we need to start acting such.
So do you think that there's still, you get the feeling that there's still people a little bit grumpy about him?
Well, I just don't, from what I can see, and may I say this, I'm a Monday morning coach and a fifth grade teacher quarterback. So just from what I can see, I don't think we at the university respect and give him and his staff and the coaches what they're doing. I think they need to turn him loose and let's show him that we want him to be a part of our family.
And obviously with what they did to Oklahoma Saturday, the largest route, shutout, all that that Texas has done to OU, don't you think that if there was any of that, don't you think that calms that down?
I would think so, but, you know, one game doesn't make a coach. But I think that he's proven himself, and I think we need to start acting accordingly. And not only with our mouth, I think our paychecks as well as that.
How often have you talked to him about just life, Earl, about his life, about your life, and had some heart-to-hearts with him just about, you know, not football coach or Hall of Famer, just people?
I think we've had a conversation about 4 times.
And how did he handle you being as honest as you were and you being honest with him and discussing life?
I think there's no secret that I'm a part of Alcohol Anonymous, and I don't think there's no secret that Coach Stegan is part of Alcohol Anonymous as well. And I think we both are honest about it and we talk about it. And that's why I pull for him more than I do the average coach, because I know what's at stake for him.
Earl, the way Texas is right now with the explosiveness they have on offense, it obviously appears there's a rhyme and a reason with what they've done defensively. Despite the loss to Tech, they do have a rhyme and a reason. No matter who you're playing, to shut somebody out in this day and age is hard to do. But let me ask you about Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson. Two different type of styles, but both very, very good. Both would be a star running back on their respective teams. Your thoughts as a great running back about what you see from those two?
I think they both are tremendous running backs as well as football players. But I think you're only good as the people around you on your team and your coaches and all that. That's why I think Coach Stegan has done a terrific job in managing all that talent.
Quinn Ewers came back after he was hurt against Alabama. Your thoughts about his talent and what he brings to that program, even though Card played very, very well?
Well, Arnold Carr played very well, but I think from what I could see what happened in the Oklahoma game, that was just a different style of football. That's what it takes to win football games. And when that quarterback came back, it just showed it, just picked everything up 2 or 3 notches.
What is, when you look at what players are doing now and what the changes in the NCAA with NIL, with the transfer portal, none of that was available back in the day. None of that was available even really 3 or 4 years ago, 2 years ago. What are your thoughts? And have you ever thought about what Earl Campbell would have been able to demand if the NIL was available when you came out of John Tyler High School?
Well, I think Earl Campbell got what he was due. I'm not bitter about the situation that's going on now. I think that's great for our athletes because I think that there's so much funds involved into college football and all that. So I think it's also great that it can be shared between the players as well as the school as well as the coaches.
I saw where Quinn Ewers gave his offensive line some Tony Lucchese, I think it was, some bags or whatever for protecting him and obviously helping the offense. If you would have had that opportunity back in the day, do you think about what gift you might have given to your offensive lineman?
Well, when it came time for me to step up to the trial, when you get into pro football, one of the things that was real popular is when you gain 1,000 yards, you took care of your offensive lineman. So my first year, I gave them something. My second year, I gave them something. And my third year was my third MVP in the league. And I reached up and I gave them something that I think all of them would really appreciate even more than when I gave them before. And I gave them all Rolex watches.
That was when you were with the Oilers, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I remember some of those stories. Earl, do you miss playing the game at all? You've been out now for a long time, but do you miss the game?
No, man, I'm 65 years old. I got so much stuff I'm involved in. And it's like this. Football has kind of passed me by. You thought I was lying when I told you I was Monday morning quarterback or Monday morning running back. That's because I'm so much involved in other things. I don't have time to watch football like people think I do.
When you do watch football today, what do you see at the college or pro level?
I see that as college football is just one of the greatest things going. I see the kids really trying. And you can tell that these coaches have their stamp on the program, and those programs that the coach have his stamp on, they seem to be the one that's playing, that's winning the games. You can tell the team that's more disciplined and all that stuff, you can tell that coach. I can just look at that team one player or two and tell that coach is really involved in the children.
You know, you mentioned you're involved in so much more as a businessman, as somebody that is in demand quite a bit. the Hall of Fame in pro football in Canton, of course, the College Football Hall of Fame, and also the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, Texas High School Football Hall of Fame. But you are in demand, and when you're in a room, people want to gravitate. They do gravitate to you. What does that mean to you?
It means a lot, because I think it ain't that I said, and I think from what I've done over the years, people kind of know that with Earl, you're going to give it a very respectable man, and you know what? He demands you respect him, and he's going to give you that kind of respect.
Do you sometimes not know exactly where you're supposed to be with so many people wanting you?
Well, that's the best thing about being Earl and not having managers and stuff, just my kids and myself. I kind of know where I got to be and what I want to do. Son Christian does a very good job of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're always helping find room for where you're supposed to be and make sure you're there.
And my son Tyler is like his mother. He counts money very good.
Hey, Tyler's been on our show. We obviously know Christian incredibly well, but Tyler does these podcasts now about life and about lessons and motivations, and it's an incredibly powerful story that he can tell. How much do you guys talk about his life?
Now, me and Tyler got quite a bit, even though he wrote a book and all that. What happened is Tyler, when Christian got tired of traveling with me, Tyler went on a trip to me in Cleveland. That was his first trip. And Jim Brown and myself was there, and Tyler was sitting on my leg. And it was all it was like who's who of running backs was there. Of course, Jim was first. And Tyler sitting on my knee, and he heard Jim Brown say, "Hey, guys, it's time to go to the public. Listen at this. I'm going to be first, Earl second. The rest of you fools get where you want to be." And Tyler heard that, and he's never forgotten that. And he always says, my dad, my Jim Brown says, my dad is second, and he's the best, Tyler took it to another level, but Tyler used to hang around with me. And when I went to the university, I majored in speech communication. That's what I got my bachelor's degree in. And Tyler, I would like to think that some of what he's doing, he's learned it from myself.
Earl, the fight you have fought as well, you mentioned conversations with Steve Sarkisian before about what he has been through, what you have been through, what many people have been through. You and I, the last time I really had a chance to visit with you a little bit on the phone, you were talking about at times at night or in the evenings that you conduct discussions with people about depression and those type of things, the mental health. How much more has that come into your life that people now open up to you about that?
I think quite a bit. I'm not embarrassed. I'm not ashamed about it. I'm really happy that I'm a part of Alcohol Anonymous and drug addiction and the mental health, because I went through a lot of that. And I know what people are talking about. And that's one of the things Sarkisian and I talk about a lot, because we both know we're doing drugs or taking pain pills, drinking Budweiser, tequila, white wine, red wine. We know what that does to somebody like us. So it's part of our responsibility to try to tell somebody else, be young, old school teacher, principal, or football player, just tell them about what that would do to your life. And that's how Stark and I really got talking about it, because I kind of know a little bit about Stark's problem, and he probably didn't know nothing about me, but he says, "Earl, I got in a lot of trouble for doing blah, blah, blah." I said, "Yeah, I heard about that." He said, "I can tell you all about what that'll do to you." I said, "Well, I've been a member for 13, 14 years almost. I know what that'll do to you, too. I'm a member, too." We used to go to the same meetings now. But he was a good guy, man. And that's why I think not only am I willing to fight for him, but because I believe in what he's doing.
Earl, for someone like yourself who has been in the role as one of the greatest players in the history of whatever level we've talked about, I've mentioned that many times, was it at all ever difficult for you to have to, admit when Tyler and Christian had the intervention? Was it eventually tough for you to publicly admit, because you're this big, strong, powerful man, that you are no different than anybody else that has problems on this earth?
Well, what happened was, because of my kids are the reason I did the damage, that's why I ended up there. But I only ended up there because my two children sit down and talk to me about it. And that's because we had such a great relationship as father, son, best friends, and all that. And it was a time they had to stop saying, we got superstar dad, we got Hall of Fame dad. We got a dad we want to see alive. And when they explain that to me like that, and, now they're not afraid to leave their 5 grandchildren with me. Or like about a week ago, I had an appointment with my 5-year-old granddaughter, Cheyenne. She got tired of seeing me take Messiah, which is my oldest grandson. Him and I go shopping. She said she wanted to go shopping on her birthday, and she wanted Pops to take. And Pops wouldn't have been able to take her shopping because my church wouldn't have let me have my grandchildren if I was doing all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a positive side of life. Those are things you like to hear. It's not the person that make a mistake in life. No matter what it is, no matter how old you are, no matter what level you're on, it's the person that's willing to get up and do something about it.
Why do you think, Earl, that no matter who the opponent was, the rival was, whether it was A&M or Oklahoma or anyone else, or even in the NFL, the Steelers, etc., why do you think that no matter what, people look at you, even if they were a rival, and loved what you were and what you represented and the player you were?
Well, that's because I was raised by a great lady, Miss Ann Campbell. Unfortunately, my dad died at such a young age, so she had to step in and be the mother, the father, the brother, the sister, the best friend, because she taught us well. And it was up to us to put that on display. And when I came down to the university, I really did want to be just a pro football player. And I got there and I learned that you could be educated as well as a football player. And I think things like that is when you step back and look at life and say, gee, what mom, what brother, and what uncle and Amy and best friends were saying was really right. I'm happy I listened. And that's one of the unfortunate things. I will fight until the day I die, because I think it's very, very selfish of us that are around these athletes in schools at Baylor, the University of Texas, TCU, anything. I think it's embarrassing that these children are such a successful football players and college athletes. But I think it's a hell of an embarrassment to have children on your campus and they can good enough to run your basketball, hit your baseball, play your football. But after 3-4 years when they leave there, they played around their whole life and you didn't have enough to help them kids get an education. I think every program in America should be embarrassed about that. And there's a lot of those schools now, those kids are good enough to be their athletes, but they don't do a damn thing about making sure those kids get an education.
Do you feel like now, Earl, because of the NIL, because young men and women, athletes are getting money, that the education part or the transfer portal, they can leave almost any time they want? Does that also on the athlete to make sure that they follow up too?
I think it's very important. It starts from the top down, from your athletic director all the way down to your professors at school, your mom and dad, letting these kids get away with that. I only say this because I know how it feels to play college football. I know how it feels to get an education while you're trying to play football. And I know how it feels to raise your children that's not going to be able to be as successful as dad was in pro football. But seeing them now out in the world producing because they're educated kids.
Earl,
and I hit the front one time, and I was talking to Christian and Tyler, and they said, "What, Dad? Why do we need to do this?" Why? I said, "You need to get you an education." Well, what is that? I turned around the wall and looked, and they said, "Oh, that's speech communication." I said, "That's where I got my degree from at the University of Texas." And as people know, these universities, if their kids are good enough to play your football and baseball, they're good enough to get an education.
Last question for you, sir. And as always, we appreciate you anytime you can be a part of the show. Texas, with the great win on Saturday and what they did, they have Iowa State coming into town. There has been really for about, 10 or 12 years where Texas has been like a roller coaster of emotions, up and down and up and down and up and down. And anytime it seems like they're about to go back up and stay up, then there is not a good ending for a game or two or three or four. What makes you think this team might be one that allows them to sustain the success that they had this weekend and so far with most of it this year?
Well, let me tell you something. If you go back and look when they started playing Alabama, they showed people that they can play with football against the elite. And that's because of Sarkisian and what he brings to the program. But what those kids have shown, including last Saturday, that wasn't just a fluke. They showed the American people and those Texas fans that we are a good football team. But what happens is, it's like when Darryl Royal and Fred Akers was coaching me down at the university. The thing that they need to realize is every week, you're in the Southwest Conference, used to be Big 12 now, but every week when you go to University of Texas, I understood from Jump Street, I was in the Super Bowl because everybody wants to be Texas. And I think Sarkisian has shown these guys, y'all are just as good as anybody else. Now let's just go do it.
Earl, thank you, as always, for what you do. Earl Campbell, a Hall of Fame at every level in football, an incredible man as well, with us on 365 Sports. Earl, thank you.
I thank you very much. But what happened to me now is I've signed a deal in Vegas, and I come out here once a month. So that's why it's been so hard for you to catch up to me. I'm on the road.
I know. I get it. I get why they would want you there in Vegas and anywhere because of the popularity of what you do. That's Earl Campbell, the great Earl Campbell on 365 Sports. Thanks to Earl for being a part of the show. Coming up next, we're going to discuss TCU with Steven Johnson. Then Tony Caridi on West Virginia, and much more to come around the corner. Travis Roeder on Baylor. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. And here's what they have for specials this week. If you want to have something really nice to put on the grill, the smoker, wherever it might be, or an upcoming tailgate. T-bone, porterhouse, steaks, $6.99 and $7.50 a pound. Boneless pork chops at $2.50 a pound. At $2.25 a pound, butterfly pork chops, you can have those, stuff them with something, whatever it might be, and just enjoy them in the oven or also on the grill. Hot dogs, $3.25 a pound. Paul says mustard only. Ring bologna, a pound of frozen ground chili for $3.50 a pound. Chicken tenders for $3.25 a pound, and a $100 steak box for just $90. It's Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-throttle bakery and butcher shop, open Monday through Saturday. And again, a hometown family with an atmosphere when you walk in the door. I was there earlier today and picked up 4 1 1/4 bone-in ribeyes for some time down the road. Had a ribeye, in fact, late Saturday evening. Waco Custom Marketplace at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of health care while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of health care has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel & Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel & Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel & Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Don's Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don's Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Shapen in the first half. A lot of pressure in his face as he sets to throw. And he goes downfield to the end zone. Beautiful from Monterey Baldwin.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Stephen Johnson accepted the job to cover TCU. Remember, it wasn't too far away from the start of fall camp. I believe it was maybe in the summer. Stephen can correct me if I'm wrong, but what a year to join to cover TCU for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Stephen, the game against Oklahoma obviously had them jump out on the map against everybody, and then to double up by winning the game against Kansas with game day and KU unbeaten and now TCU unbeaten and Oklahoma State this week. What is the mood right now in Fort Worth for Frog fans?
I think everybody's pretty excited, man. I think so far it's been kind of confirmation what everybody kind of thought, that there just needs to be a new voice, new energy around the program. And what you're seeing now is they have one of the best offenses in the country. The defense it's better than last year, but obviously that's not saying necessarily much. But the unit does just enough to kind of complement that good offense. So I think everybody's excited. I'm expecting the stadium to be packed and full. It's not a primetime game, but it is a 2:30 kickoff. So that should allow a lot of Fort Worth to be out there and be loud. So the energy is great, man. It's kind of just confirmation of what they thought they were seeing in the summer, but now it's playing out on the field. So now TCU, I think, is starting to feel like, hey, they can have a special season in year one under Sonny Dykes.
Is that part of that transference? We saw it this week in a game with Kansas that, was back and forth and just a classic game, that could have gone either way at times. And Max Duggan in the past in those kind of games has kind of gotten too keyed up and made some mistakes. Is that culture change, that new voice in the room spilling over to him because Sonny Dykes is very even-keeled?
I would definitely say so. And the way they prepare for games and even what goes on during it, they've shown a really good job of not letting the moment get too big for them. That's the Kansas game was the third straight week. You could say they were, I guess, involved in a very emotional game. You had the SMU rivalry game. You're facing Oklahoma, who they haven't beaten since 2014. Now you got game day on the road against a kind of a surging opponent. But each week they came out pretty much with the same mentality, the same mindset. I think that really helped them against Kansas. At one point they really trailed for the first time since Colorado, and that to me was going to be a big moment for them. The way they responded, going back and forth with Kansas, and eventually making the plays. Quentin Johnson gets the game-winning touchdown catch with about 90 seconds left. I think that the way they won, I think, was huge because everything had been relatively smooth for them leading up to that point. But the fact that they could go down, experience some adversity on the road against a very good team, it was encouraging to see.
Stephen, how different do you think things might be if Chandler Morris had never gotten hurt, or do you think that they were kind of set up to be doing this regardless of who was at quarterback?
I think they were set up to do this regardless of who was at quarterback. Look, I think what happened in the first game was really just jitters, man. I don't think any really part of the offense in that first half was really just clicking the way they are now. The run game, the receivers, and of course Chandler didn't have his best game either. But before he got hurt, if I remember correctly, he had completed, I think, six of seven passes. He led them on 2 scoring drives. So it looked like to me that he was kind of getting back in that rhythm along with the offense. So I think if he was starting, I don't know if he'd be playing as well as Max is, because Max is playing as well as any quarterback in the country right now. What you're saying for him is literally the best football of his life. But I think for this offense, with the receivers they had, with the running backs they had, I think whether it's Chandler or Max, I think they were going to be one of the top offenses in the country regardless.
They just have what appears to me. And, of course, it's not like they haven't had it before, but it used to always, or most of it seemed like it was on defense. It seems like they're a team that could easily just get out there and win some track relays. Is that what you see on offense as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think the over for TCU and Oklahoma right now is around 70. I will probably lean towards taking the over. They just have so many guys that can score from really anywhere on the field. And just think about it. They had one of the top offenses in the country, and that was before Quentin Johnson caught a single touchdown pass, obviously, against Kansas. So Kendre Miller, Amari DiMercado, those are guys, I think before the Kansas game, they were both averaging better than 7 yards per carry. Darius Davis might be one of the most electric players in the country, as is Tate Barber. So really they have, it feels like to me, 5 or 6 guys that you can really look at and say, these guys are home run hitters. And whether we're at the 20-yard line or we're 80 yards from the end zone, these guys can take it to the house at any time. So I think it's going to be really difficult for a lot of teams to really keep up and keep pace with them on offense.
So what's a bad matchup for this offense?
I think honestly the next 2 games will really kind of be interesting. Obviously Oklahoma State, they don't have the defense they had last year. They're replacing so much of their secondary, have a new defensive coordinator. They were a top 10 scoring defense last year. They're in the 70s now, I believe. So, but what they can do up front with their defensive line, I think so far, the TCU offensive line, there have been moments where, defense have kind of had their way with them. But overall, this unit has been pretty good in protecting Max Duggan. They're one of the top teams of the Big 12 protecting the quarterback. I was watching the Oklahoma State game against Texas Tech, and on the broadcast, they said the Cowboys feel like they can go 14 deep on the defensive line, which is just a staggering number. So I think if they can pressure Max consistently and not just in spurts, then maybe that could be a bad matchup. And then obviously there's Kansas State and Iowa State. Those are teams that can really just make TCU play ugly They're going, they have pretty good defenses for the Big 12. Kansas State with their running game with Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn. They're the type of team that can play keep away and really just kind of test the discipline of the TCU defense because they're going to have Adrian running so much. So I would say really those three teams are teams I think could be potentially bad matchups, but I think they're suited to kind of keep up with Oklahoma State because I'm not sure the Cowboys have the same talent in the secondary as they did last year.
Stephen, we watched Quentin Johnston throughout his high school career. He was in the district that plays the team that we cover on a regular basis, so we got to see a good deal of him just down the road. I knew he was a fantastic player, and he got off to a nice start, but just what have you seen from him in your time covering the program so far, outside of obviously the big catch to win the game on Saturday? Just what have been your impressions of the young wide receiver?
I really like what I've seen from him mentally. He started off slow, honestly. I think he was 5th or 6th on the team before the Kansas game. He was getting catches, but, he was just facing so many double teams, so much double coverage that he really didn't have that chance to break out. And keep in mind, I'm sure you guys know, he was a guy who was on all these preseason watch lists and awards lists. He's got all these people saying, hey, you're going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. So when you go through that first quarter of the season, you don't have a touchdown, you barely have over 100 yards. It would have been easy for, I think, anybody to be frustrated. I'm an LSU fan, so you see what's happening down there with their star receiver when he's not getting his numbers. But Quentin was never like that. His approach never wavered. And I think he's really embraced that leadership role. So now in the biggest game of the year when they needed him the most, he just turns in one of the best games ever by a TCU receiver. So the fact that he could stay engaged and just stay ready for the moment, I think that's been the most impressive thing about Quentin so far.
Yeah, he was good, I thought, in high school because he was just taller than everybody. But I always kind of wondered about, what would he be like in college, and he's proven that. He's over 200 yards in that win. If now they beat Oklahoma, they were ranked in the top 20. Kansas was 19th. Now they're about to play top 10 Oklahoma State, and then Kansas State is off, and so they'll be at least 17 or better. We've discussed Texas Tech's run of playing a bunch of ranked teams. This is a stretch, a battering ram for them, and so far they've passed it. And how much fun is it covering games like this right now, Stephen?
Well, it's been great, man. It's been great. I think anytime, whether you're a fan, a coach, or media, you want to be around a program that's competing, that really feels like they're competing in games that matter on the national scale. So this is going to be another one. Kind of feels like it's a part of Showdown Saturday. You got Tennessee, Bama, Michigan, Penn State, and now, and of course, USC, Utah as well. And now you have TCU and Oklahoma State. So this feels like one of those games where everybody, your national people, your ESPNs, your Foxes, etc., everybody's going to kind of have their eyes on those games. So it's exciting for me. And I know the people around Fort Worth and the TCU program, they're starting to really believe, man, that this is a team. They thought they could compete. They thought they were going to make a bowl game, and all the projections of having them 6-6 and 5-7 were selling them short. But I think if they can kind of escape on Saturday with a win over a top 10 team, man, you just got to start really thinking about how far can they go. And obviously the schedule's still tough in the back end, but now you beat Oklahoma State, man, you got to feel like you have a really good shot winning the Big 12 and maybe more.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate your time. Again, hold on, one more thing.
Yeah, I got one more question. Stephen, you got to size up Kansas in person, including both quarterbacks. What were your impressions of the Jayhawks?
It was just kind of wild to me how their backup quarterback, Jason Bean, came in, and the offense honestly looked better than it did with Jalen Daniels. Bean, he's a runner too, a tall, lanky kid, but he's pretty fast too. And some of the throws he was making, man, they were just, some of them were wide open, but at the end of the game, really in that fourth quarter, I think the last touchdown pass, he threw to Quentin Skinner. That was a throw, man, you really only see from guys on Sunday. And I'm not saying he's an NFL quarterback. That just seemed like maybe it was one of those games where, I don't know, it was maybe an out-of-body experience. But Kansas is a legit team. They're really creative on offense, man. They had so many opportunities, so many guys just running wide open down the seams across the middle. So all the window dressing they do with the motions and the fake handoffs, and you got guys pulling this way, they're going to have a lot of teams on their heels. Obviously, they're not the most talented team, but I think they're more talented than past Kansas teams. So they're a legit football team, man. They're going to make a bowl game. They're going to beat a couple more teams in the Big 12. They're legit, man. That was a good win over a good team for TCU.
Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate your time. Stephen Johnson covers TCU for the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. We're going to hear from the voice of West Virginia, Tony Caridi, here at one moment. Jake, I'm not sure if you have the one from Mike Hart, the Michigan running backs coach. I don't know if we sent that to you or not, but there was a scary moment where he seemed to have a seizure on the sideline of that Michigan game. And he did post this yesterday evening. I'd like to thank everyone for their support, messages, prayers. I'm truly grateful. Trainers and paramedics, doctors and nurses at IU Hospital, Michigan's team doctors, coaching staff, players, and Coach Harbaugh. I would also like to thank Indiana's football staff and the team doctors. I'll never forget everyone's kindness and generosity. My wife and I are thankful to be surrounded by such incredible people. Back in Ann Arbor, Mike Hart, that was a scary moment on the sideline for Michigan. You could imagine what it did to the team, and he posted that to let everyone know he's fine yesterday evening. We are now joined by Tony Caridi, voice of West Virginia Athletics on 365 Sports. Tony, thank you very much for your time. And Thursday night game in Morgantown, obviously Baylor's never won there before, and both teams really, probably needed to work on some things. What do you think that Neil Brown and company needed to work on the most during the off week?
Getting in the right position. Really struggled in that regard against Texas on the defensive end. Just had a bunch of opportunities that, from an alignment issue, and that's not the first time that's happened. That also happened a good bit against Kansas. And I think it speaks to the fact that, West Virginia really had an overhaul at the two corners and the safety spots this offseason. And as a result of that, just trying to get this thing synced up. And as a result of that, really trying to find some form of consistency. So I would answer your question by saying it's probably, let's just get lined up first and stop suffering paralysis analysis. Easier said than done, but I think that would be the number one objective.
Tony, Baylor's never won in Morgantown. It's been a house of horrors for them. What, from your perspective, somebody who's been there forever, what is it about that crowd? Like in Oklahoma State, it's the paddles on the side. What is it about that crowd that makes it so difficult for teams to win there, even when the visiting team should be favored and maybe even sometimes walk away with a game?
There's a mysterious mountain air that emanates from the hills at nighttime. Little do people know, but it removes their oxygen. And before the fourth quarter comes, they're totally breathless, and they've got no answer. Oh, I don't know. I think it's a combination of things over the years, and this isn't specific to, Baylor. And I know we've had some unbelievable games in the last decade, but I think that Mountaineer crowds are normally very energized to begin with. And then when you turn the lights on, I think that ramps up. So I think that's been part of it. And then, through the years, you got to have good players. And, a lot of those big time wins have come as a result of big time players, playing at a very high level. And so I think that's been the key. But, this particular contest, guys, this is an extremely important game for West Virginia, as we've seen each week. And you guys were just kind of alluding to it, week in and week out. This league is as balanced as it's been since I can remember, and this is our 11th season. There really isn't a bad team at the bottom, and the elite teams have dropped down. And so as a result of that, you get this great conference race. And so, if you're West Virginia, you're sitting here at 2-3 and 0-2 in the league, and you look that there's no such thing as an easy Saturday coming up. And so the importance of this game, really is peaked up. So we'll see how it all unfolds.
Tony, we saw the news about C.J. Donaldson, unfortunately, last week about the injury. How's he feeling based on your knowledge, and what does that mean for the West Virginia running back group heading into this matchup with Baylor?
He's doing okay. They obviously have taken him out of this one. It was a concussion. You guys saw that against Texas, and it was scary. But fortunately, there was no significant, breaks or anything like that. So that's the good news. What it does take away from West Virginia is a 240-pound sledgehammer that really came out of nowhere this season. And it takes you away from a guy that can really pound it and your short yardage situations. And so it hurts, but, they'll try to do it with Justin Johnson, Tony Mathis. Those guys seem to be capable, but it takes away just a big physical presence back there.
Tony, the Neil Brown, obviously they need a win. The Pitt was a tough loss, and then Kansas at the time, you're like, oh, my God. How has he handled the first – I know you do a show with him. How has he handled the first few games, half of the first season?
He's okay. He's a realist. He gets it. And, he knows what the bottom line is, that you have to win football games. And he took over a West Virginia program 4 seasons ago that was, depleted at an extremely high level of depletion and had to build the thing. And he built the offensive line now to where it's a capable, solid offensive line, and the same with the defensive unit. I think, a couple of things have set him back. And, we all had to deal with the COVID, but I think COVID, slowed him down in trying to get the buy-in and the culture within the program. And then secondly, we have been hit extremely hard with the transfer portal. And the reason that we've got a new back half of a defense is because, we've got guys that were good that left. And so as a result of that, not where you would want to be and not where you expected to be at this point. So he's really good. He's a realist. He knows what it takes. He knows what you have to do. And at this point, he's handled it well. Obviously, extremely disappointed that he hasn't gotten some bounces. You guys alluded to the Pitt game. It was there for the taking. You lose to Kansas in overtime. So they're closer than they are farther away, although the Texas performance was disappointing.
Tony, how much will the powers that be administration kind of ease into the new world of college football? You mentioned the transfer portal. A lot of times that can be blamed on a coach, but a lot of times it can be blamed on not being completely ready outside of everything that's going on in college football to make sure those guys don't leave or fight off all these weird things from the outside, to let Neil Brown get his footing and navigate through those things that are tough for everybody.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
What do you think the administration sees that, and this is more of a fan thing on heat on Neil Brown?
Well, yeah, I think, more so than ever before, guys, the culture is changing when it comes to coaches and being terminated early. We've never seen the rash of terminations that we're seeing nowadays. And the reason for that, as you guys know, is because the money has never been at this level. And so we're starting to see, terminations taking place. We saw, even in September, and then obviously, a week back, we're seeing guys get knocked out because the dollar amount has never been at this level before. And so more money spent, more money and more expectations. But in regard to West Virginia's administration, they knew and they know, what Neil was dealt when he got here. That was the reality of it, and that's why they extended his contract after a season because they saw what he was doing and the culture that he's installing. But at the same time, to my point, earlier, everyone and anyone in this game knows that it always comes down to the wins and to the losses, and so they're aware of that. And at this point, I think it's much more fan related. And again, you guys know this as well. You do this on a regular basis. There are very, very large vocal minorities. And while, you guys might get on Twitter and say, oh my, they're hot at this coach or they're hot at that coach, that represents such a minuscule portion of the actual fan base. Believe it or not everyone is on Twitter. Believe it or not, stunning development, guys. And so if you live your life off of Twitter and you live your life out of the people that make the most noise, that's not realistic. And so I think that WVU has that in perspective.
Tony, what matchup do you like the best for West Virginia entering this game? Which one are you a little bit more cautious about?
Oh, what's the matchup that I like? The fact that, West Virginia's played really well at home with Neil Brown. I just think being home here, I think gives you some good mojo. I think anytime you've got a quarterback that's got the capability and the talent of JT Daniels, I think that gives you a chance. On the other side of it, what concerns you from the Baylor perspective is the way that they played West Virginia last year. They just big boyed West Virginia last year. It was one of the Mountaineers' poorest performances. You guys went into max protection, which allowed Bohannon to have all kinds of time to throw big explosive chunk plays, and they hit. And so, to me, that's the concern. If Baylor can successfully power and run the football and then max protect to set up chunk plays, that's going to be the same concern that it was a year ago.
Tony, what was it like doing the game 70-63 in Morgantown with that shootout.
It was unbelievable, man. So, as you know, that was the first ever Big 12 game in Morgantown. And at that time, the perception of the league was what? It's, hey, guys, it's basketball on grass. And you kind of went like, okay, fine, it's basketball on grass. Okay, fine, it's basketball. And then you play the first game and you go, oh, my gosh, what is this? Because truly, if you guys know this, at that time, the way that Art Briles was playing, I mean, tempo was so fast. It truly felt to me personally like I was doing a basketball game because there was no stoppage. And then, you know, West Virginia had some players, right? West Virginia had Geno Smith, still in the NFL, Tavon Austin, still in the NFL, you know, Stedman Bailey, you know, three greats that just all went into the WV Sports Hall of Fame a couple of weeks ago together. And so that was one of the more – so that was that's a weird game. That's a paradox of a game. It's awesome that you scored 133 points and it came down to the last possession. Awesome, great, entertaining. It's absolutely frightening. You just gave up 63 points, right? And so that'll be one of the all-time great memories. I don't know if it was going to be one of the all-time great games, but one of the all-time great memories.
Thank you, Tony, as always, buddy. Appreciate your time. Enjoy the broadcast Thursday night. Tony Caridi, voice of West Virginia athletics, with us on 365 Sports. That game will have kind of a mixture of our show into a pregame, basically from the time we start at 3 o'clock, kickoff just after 6, West Virginia hosting Baylor, and both teams need a win. This is 365 Sports. When we come back, Baylor coming off the off week. What did they work on? And a couple of things that Dave Aranda had said over the weekend, from Saturday to even others. And Travis Roeder breaks it all down next on 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, come by Let's Be Friends, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. And, of course, they have the Ram truck, back-to-back Motor Trend Truck of the Year. And, of course, as the month now gets deeper into October with offers and discounts and incentives and more, the Jeep brand, what they have there, Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. They have Dodge, the Challenger and Charger and much more, incentives and much more offers for you. Ask your client manager when you get there, or go online, alansamuelsdcj.com. Ram trucks, they have Jeep, they have, again, Dodge, and, of course, as you already know, what they can do with all the vehicles, SUVs, and trucks. Go by. Again, it's Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, locally owned pizza place that's out of this world. Everything from the dough, the sauce, the sausage topping is made fresh in-house. Not to mention the amazing pizza pillows, the chicken wings are to die for. Try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries or tots, plus great specials on food and drink every single day. Shorty's is also the perfect spot to watch the game with your friends. Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby. Tell them Paul sent you by.
We're fighting hard at Pickup Outfitters in our battle to end truck nudity. But it's not just about putting an outfit on a naked truck, it's about making sure you have the very best customer service. So we offer the Pickup Outfitters Lifetime Installation Guarantee. Over time, sometimes your outfit needs a little tune-up, maybe some tightening, adjusting, whatever. If you outfitted your truck at Pickup Outfitters, that tune-up is absolutely no charge for the remainder of the time you own that truck. We also offer free warranty assistance. If for any reason you need to use your warranty, you just bring it back to us and we take care of it. It just makes sense. I mean, operating without a promise like that would be like offering customer service in the nude. And if you've seen our staff, trust me, you don't want that. So do your part to end truck nudity by outfitting your truck, Jeep, SUV, or van at Pickup Outfitters, 220 Lake Air Drive in Waco, where we promise to serve you fully clothed. Check out our website, createacommotion.com.
You
want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Travis Roeder of Sikkim365.com.
Travis Roeder with us, Sikkim365.com and 365 Sports college football analyst as Baylor Thursday, West Virginia after the off week. Travis, you write a lot about what you think they might have done during the off week, what they needed to do, and also West Virginia. Let's start here. What do you feel like they could have accomplished? And based on what Dave Aranda said, even in his press conference on Saturday.
Well, I think for any team going into a bye week, it's always about a return to fundamentals. And I don't mean that to be a boring answer, but that's just the reality of when you think about, the week to week of a college football season. There's only a couple practices each week. So basically you just finished a game on Saturday, you review the tape on Sunday and Monday, and then the next few days you're preparing for your next opponent the next week. So what bye weeks really allow you to do is turn the focus inward instead of kind of scheming outward and looking at the next the next game. You turn that focus inward. And so I think for Baylor specifically, what that's meant is, they've struggled tackling in space somewhat. So I'm sure they got back to their tackling fundamentals. And then on offense and defense, both, they're struggling at the skill position. So on offense, they're struggling at wide receiver, somewhat at running back as well. And on defense, they're struggling out at their, cornerback play and defensive back play. What's being sound in their coverage schemes as far as knowing where to be, who to cover, how to handle different route combinations, that kind of stuff. So my guess is that they really went back to basics, practiced some very much fundamental type stuff, but also the coaching staff, I think, for example, on defense, they probably said, we're giving up way too much on third downs as far as pass, on a clear 3rd and 8, stuff like that. They're giving up conversions too easy there. My guess is that Ron Roberts and that defensive staff has said, look, what are 2 or 3 coverages that we feel like we can really master over this bye week and perform them well the remainder of the season. It's not about adding a million things. It's getting down to the basics and trying to figure out what you're good at and mastering that for the season that's remaining.
You were high on them. You expected them to perform better in certain places. Which is the one you think they may just be who they are?
I think at wide receiver, they might just be who they are. I was very, very confident in Monterey Baldwin being the guy that he showed us that he was against Oklahoma State. I think they're going to be able to lean on him and his connection with Blake Shapen for the remainder of the season. But I think as far as outside receivers go, I felt better about the fact that they had 4 or 5 really talented young guys, and I thought that at least one of them would become, a really solid, maybe middle of the pack, upper tier level Big 12 wide receiver. And I think Hal Presley is going to become pretty good by the end of the season, but I'm thinking the ceiling at that position, at least for 2022, might be lower than I expected. And so I think for Baylor, it's really going to be more about, executing the run game, getting that connection between Chapin and Ben Sims and Monterey Baldwin over the middle down, and then hoping to just get some more competent play outside as opposed to, they don't have a Quentin Johnston, the receiver for TCU, walking through the door to play outside receiver for them next week. But I do think they can get some, kind of more standard, at least expected play is the way I would put it. I think they just need to get guys like Hal Presley just a better rapport with Blake Chapin. They don't necessarily need to dominate the game, but they need to be able to execute the basics. And I think they're struggling to just kind of do the basics at this point.
Is Chapin been able to do what he's done with what's going on around him or not going on, or the lack of production in certain ways? What can he do if, in fact, they can iron some of that out?
Well, I think I've really liked what I've seen from him this year. He's exceeded my expectations. I know Baylor fans had really high expectations for him. I'm somebody, I watched a lot of his high school tape, and he was pretty mistake prone because he had that gunslinger attitude. Mm-hmm. And I think we've seen him really, I think him and Jeff Grimes are kind of a perfect marriage for one another. Because I think this offense really puts some kind of helpful guardrails on him. And I don't mean that in any sort of, pejorative way. I just think it's a good fit. Like, they let him take his chances when the spot is right. But this isn't Texas Tech's offense. They're not putting the ball in his hands with unlimited decisions on every play. It's a lot of, true play action, rollouts, that kind of stuff that limits the possibility for mistakes. And then when they need him to make a play like they needed on that 4th and 5 when he had that beautiful throw to Monterey Baldwin, he's capable of it. So I think what I expect from him is just, we've seen every game this year, he just seems a little bit better, a little bit more comfortable. And if he continues that trend, I'm sure he'll have 1 or 2 bad games. That's just the nature of the beast in college football. But if he can continue that trend of just getting a little bit better each week, I think Baylor has a top 3 or 4 QB in the Big 12 by the end of the season. And that goes a long way given how good Baylor's defense should be in improving and how good their run game is this year.
Now that you've seen others in the conference, we see TCU explosive. Texas Tech has played a difficult schedule, and yet we've seen that they look like they are explosive. Now, obviously, Oklahoma is really down. Iowa State is 0-3. Texas, with the explosiveness in their defense, seems to have a rhyme and a reason. Now that you see all of that landscape, does it change what you expect from Baylor at the end of the year?
Not exactly. I think Baylor is still in that kind of clearly in the top half of the league. I think it's becoming, the Big 12 is as murky as it's ever been. There really is, one of the things I dealt with this offseason was no matter how you did a power ranking, you were going to make at least a couple of fan bases mad because somebody has to finish towards the bottom of the league. And this year, there are just no bad teams in the Big 12, with the exception of when Oklahoma doesn't have Dylan Gabriel. They are flat out terrible. But outside of them, Baylor's fixing to play a West Virginia team this Thursday that is probably one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the conference. But when you look at all their, advanced stat numbers, they look like pretty much just kind of like a below-average Power 5 team. They're not bad by any means. They have some clear weaknesses, but they have some clear strengths as well. And so, I think as the league continues to play out and crystallize, I think teams like Texas is looking stronger and stronger. Kansas State looks good. I do think that Baylor is still a very good team that just has a few kinks they need to iron out. I feel like I'm missing somebody obvious here that I can't think of. Oklahoma State, obviously. So I think there are a lot of really, really good teams. And one of the takeaways I had from the bye week when you're able to just sit back and watch everyone else play football as opposed to your hyper focus on one team is just the margins are so thin in college football, and the difference between wins and losses often just comes down to 3, 4, 5 big plays. I think we've seen Baylor be on the wrong side of that in a couple of contests, and I think it's just because the attention to detail has not been there. So if they can refocus their attention, attack every down like it's the last play of the game, then I think they very clearly have the coaching and the talent to be in Arlington again at the end of the year.
Despite Byers playing like he's played, how much have they missed Khalil Keith?
Oh, I think they've missed him a lot. And again, I think Byers has played really well the past couple of weeks. But I think back to last season, what Baylor really was able to do towards the latter half of the season once Khalil Keith asserted himself was they could just straight up run the ball behind him. And he, basically no matter who lined up across from him, you knew that he was going to physically dominate them at the point of attack. I'm not a Cowboys fan, but I know that the Cowboys drafted, the Ole Miss defensive end in the second round. Sam Williams, I think, was his name. And, Khalil Keith dominated him in that Sugar Bowl. He's just physically very impressive. I remember him doing the same thing to those Texas defensive linemen as well. So I think, obviously Khalil Keith has probably, is one of the, of all the Baylor players, he probably is one of the 2 or 3 with the highest upside on the entire team. And he started to really play more consistently. So anytime you lose one of your better players, that really negatively affects you. And I think with Baylor needing to rely on their run game early this year because the pass game has been struggling with the wide receivers out wide, I think anything they could do to make that run game better would help. And obviously missing Khalil Keith hurts, but missing Tay McWilliams, their starting running back, has really hurt a lot too.
Yeah.
Those are 2 pretty integral pieces, and it seems like both of them are probably going to be back in a couple of weeks. So really excited about that because I think we could see a new dimension to this offense when both of those guys are back.
Who has played better than you thought? Is there anyone in particular that maybe has played better than you expected?
Yeah, this is a question that if you ask me 10 minutes from now, I might come up with a different response. There's quite a few options. With the guy who went into my head as soon as you asked me that, and that's Micah Mazuka, the left guard. We knew that he had, NFL size, NFL athleticism, but he was really he's the only new starter on this Baylor offensive line. And I think there's been at least a couple of games this year where he's pretty arguably been Baylor's best offensive lineman. And that's been a real treat to watch because he's physically dominant at the point of attack. He's kind of like what Khalil Keith looks like if Khalil Keith was playing left guard. Very physical, terrific athleticism. He's been really good on basically every long run Baylor has had this year by a running back. If you look at the play, you'll notice that Micah Mazuka is often blocking in space and dominating somebody in space. So I think he's been a real pleasant surprise. I expected him to be good, but I expected more mental mistakes and I expected more errors. And this Baylor offensive line is playing really well right now, and a large part of it is because nobody is making clear mistakes where you just see like a defensive lineman just in the backfield and you see the offensive lineman kind of looking at each other like, what happened? You just never see that happen. So it's really good to see a first-time starter from a young guy, Micah Mazuka, playing really well at left guard.
Is the offensive line filled with enough grit, as Eric Mateo says? Do you feel like they have that? Do they have that anger, meanness, edge like we saw them throughout last year?
Well, I hate to pontificate about that, but the nice aspect of this question is that we have the answer from Dave Aranda. I think he said in his press conference the other day that he needs to see more tenacity, more aggressiveness from that offensive line. I think they've had it in fits and spurts. But, mentality and toughness, that's something that the toughest aspect of playing tough is bringing it every single moment on every snap. You can't let up. You can't wait till you absolutely need it. You got to need it every single down. And so, like I said, I'm glad I'm not having to call that out on just my supposition. It's really what Aranda said. So obviously they have it within them. We saw it last year. I think by and large, they're playing really, really well. However, like I said, with the pass game struggling out wide, I think, I talked about how well I think Blake Chaffin's playing, but, they don't have the dogs at outside receiver right now, at least not yet. And so they need to be able to really go into Morgantown this Thursday against a defense who's really struggling to defend the run on like 1st and 10, 2nd and 4, all those kind of downs, and just be able to say, look, we're just going to dominate you at the point of attack. Because West Virginia's pretty bad defensively, but they still have a couple of really good interior defensive linemen. Obviously, Dante Still is leading the pack. So in that home crowd environment, in that away environment, that nasty home crowd environment for West Virginia, they need to be able to go in there, shut out the noise, create their own juice, bring the grit, and get after it, because I think Baylor's going to need to lean on them to come out of there with a victory on Thursday.
Travis Roeder, college football analyst, SicEm365.com on 365 Sports.
All right, coming up in the next hour, we'll hear from Tim Brando, Fox Sports, and David Helman on the Cowboys in the NFL. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace, just on the southern part of Waco, just off of I-35, is a place that you can find out what hurts you a lot. It could be a muscle in your shoulder, could be something, maybe even a pinched-type nerve or an issue that is creating problems in your shoulder, down your back, even your legs. I was there to get an MRI to check out what I continue to have was a problem in my hip. And so I got an MRI on my lower back, and they found that I had an LC and L4. One of them was really, really, really narrow, and the other one was kind of getting, you could tell it was aggravated. I had treatment. Everything's been great since that time. Also, they can find out if it's a torn ligament or a muscle elsewhere in your body, your knee, your ankle, or perhaps your shoulder. Ideal MRI also will only charge you $497 every single time. It won't go up, and it could go down. They will help you filing the insurance to make sure that number $497 might be lower, and they have the state-of-the-art technology MRI machine that is fantastic at idealmri.com.
During Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels, our great selection of new cars and trucks come with amazing deals and competitive financing that makes you ask, why shop anywhere else? The new 2022 Ram trucks are designed to be durable, functional, and stylish. These legendary, award-winning trucks give you that first-class feel, luxurious leather trim seating options, exceptional legroom and storage, plus surround view camera options you'd expect from a premium truck. Come see our selection today or browse online at AllenSamuelsDCJ.com.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs, and veggie burgers too. Nachos and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injuries, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott and White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and 2-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
They might go for it, and they do. 4th down and 5. Chapin and Baylor. His throw for Baldwin has a first down across the 40 and then some. Oh, the speed! 70 yards! Sparks off his shoes for Monterey Baldwin.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
And an incredible guest we have on occasion, and quite a bit actually. Tim Brando, Fox Sports college football historian and also college football truth serum, joins us on 365 Sports. Tim, this has been a fun, wonderful, and exciting season. What your biggest takes were from the weekend we just had?
If Hendon Hooker is a Heisman candidate for Tennessee, then I saw Dorian Thompson-Robinson of UCLA, and he's every bit as worthy of Heisman consideration. I'll tell you that right now. He put on an incredible performance against Utah in our game at the Rose Bowl, and I was a giddy kid. I mean, a kid in the candy store, Smoke. I mean, it was so much fun to be in Keith Jackson's broadcast center calling that game. The last of the college football cauldrons, cathedrals, if you will, that I had never done a game from. So if it all ends tomorrow, and somebody says, Brando, you're done, you're cooked, you're never working again in this business, I could say every major stadium in college football history I've called a game in. So it was a blast. That's my original takeaway because it's something that's still in my head. The other more larger 30,000-foot takeaway is I'm not so sure that this so-called tier of three that is so much better than everybody else is really that much better than everybody else. I think everyone felt that Alabama was going to lay a woodshedding on Texas A&M, whether Monroe was the quarterback or Bryce Young. And as bad as that A&M offensive plan looked, and I didn't give them a snowball's chance in hell of scoring on that last play either, but they still should have had a second play after that. The good old SEC clock operator and referee and replay official decided to turn another cheek after the interception was made and interference was called. Young man hit his knee in the end zone, and the clock goes from 6 to 5 to 4 to 3, and no one bothered to correct it. So A&M only got one quick look. Now, I don't think it would have changed anything. I didn't think that they would come up with a play to score either. But any other team in America playing that game, besides Alabama, they would have had 3 more seconds on the clock.
Tim, I enjoyed the Whoa Nelly at the end of the UCLA game. but
yeah, I had to get it in. You know, Keith used to say when people did the "Oh Nelly," he used to say, I really don't remember ever saying "Whoa Nelly." He used to always say that. So I didn't use it in the game. Had there been a big fumble, I might have gone into that. But the other thing I remember, it was warm there. So Spencer and I were, it's very, very hot. It's very hot in the booth today in Pasadena. It was just great to be there, to be in that stadium with all that history. You think about all the great games played there, going back to the Four Horsemen in 25. And I didn't know this before I got the assignment, but this is the centennial year. They gave me a lapel pin with the 100th anniversary centennial year on it. And they also sent roses and a huge one of those cookie cakes welcoming us to the Rose Bowl. So they were very hospitable to us, to say the least.
So, Tim, what did you make of that win over Utah? Obviously, Dorian Thompson-Robinson's a great player. Charbonnet is a really good back. I mean, they got some fun toys and obviously a great head coach there in Chip Kelly. But what did you kind of see not only from the UCLA side of things to make you buy in further, but also from the Utah side of things?
Well, I thought Utah would likely win the game like a lot of other people. I was bullish on Utah, as you guys know, just as I was Baylor in the preseason. And I felt like even though both teams had lost a game early, in fact, their openers, I felt each of them were capable of running the table after that. And I think most of America felt that way. Okay. And Utah had their number. They'd won 5 in a row. against UCLA, and they have a physical secondary that in the past has been able to get to DTR and also knock some of these receivers off their route running. And UCLA's really improved in that area. They've got more than just one receiver. Okay, they've got several. And as good as Charbonnet is, they've got two other really good running backs. Keegan Jones is outstanding. The transfer from Duke, Bobo, is almost unguardable. I mean, he's got the size of a tight end, but he runs incredible routes. And Kashmir Allen is outstanding. They got speed merchants all over the place. And their special teams are tremendous because Kashmir can take it to the house on any kickoff that's coming his way. So I was tremendously impressed with UCLA's arsenal. And when you give Chip Kelly that many different guys to work with, and now he's got DTR really distributing the ball very, very well. I mean, there 5-6 different guys had touches after the first 3 series of the game. But the defenses were both giving up a lot of yards, which you anticipated. But what I did not think would happen, did happen, and that is UCLA was stingy inside their red zone. Bill McGovern, the defensive coordinator that was hired, that worked with Chip for 3 years in Philadelphia, a longtime NFL guy, is playing some Tampa 2 coverage in that secondary. Not many people in college football can do that. And he had a linebacker, a Mike linebacker, with an interception on a 20-yard crossing pattern. And he had his best Mike linebacker that far down the field, and that flipped the game a little bit early when Utah had a chance to score. The Utes are really good. I mean, it's a typical Whittingham coach team, but they were outplayed, and I'm not going to say outmanned, but outplayed for sure in that game. And now UCLA gets a week off before they go to Eugene. And as a matter of fact, Spencer and I are on a 6-day hold. We might have that game. It depends on the baseball schedule with the playoffs. Either Jason and Brock or Spencer and I will go for that game, depending on what time the baseball is going to be. We only have 2 games on Fox on the 22nd, the other because of the baseball, and we'll do the FS1 game at night in prime time, and it's either going to be the TCU game at home on the 22nd, or it's going to be the game in Eugene with UCLA. Either way, we get a great game. And that's really my takeaway is UCLA is legit. DTR should be a Heisman candidate if Hooker is at Tennessee. And TCU with Duggan, my goodness, fellas, how good did that kid look? Mm-hmm. How good did he look? And that was a legit Kansas team, too, that had to answer with a backup quarterback. And Dean, thankfully, he played some. But, I mean, to come in and throw 4 touchdown passes when Daniels got hurt, to pull that off, man, that was an amazing weekend for college football across the board.
You know, we saw Texas smoke Oklahoma, and Oklahoma's in a free fall. Iowa State's 0-3. TCU plays Oklahoma State in Fort Worth this weekend. Baylor Thursday night against West Virginia in Morgantown. Any thoughts from what you saw from any of those teams or what you see this week?
Well, I think it's wide open. I don't think West Virginia is nearly as bad as they performed in the Texas game. I thought Texas had a lot to do with that. And it looks as though Sark found something, okay? And has, even though they have 2 losses, fellas, they're going to be a real problem for anybody that's left on their schedule. You know, you gotta give it to Sark. And he did it with Hudson Card in the West Virginia game because he wanted to have a healthy Quinn Ewers ready to go in Red River. And to blast Oklahoma to Kingdom Come like that, I don't think that's a mirage. I think there's some legitimacy to that, which is going to make Texas a really hard out the rest of this season. As it relates to Iowa State and, gosh, everybody, Texas Tech, all these teams are dangerous. I mean, Texas Tech was right there at Oklahoma State, too. You know, I mean, it was in doubt. And I don't need to tell you about the Cowboys, the way Spencer Sanders is playing. You guys found that out a few weeks ago, too, when we were headed to West Virginia, to the Texas game with West Virginia. I just think that the Big 12 is wide open.
Oklahoma State's in the best possible position, obviously, because they've got a goose egg in the loss column. But I think the potential of having 2 losses and winning the league is still very, very much in play. Well, I mean, without a doubt. Now, it would hurt them would hurt the Big 12 in terms of playoff possibilities. But there's just not a bad team in the Big 12. You don't have a Northwestern or a Vanderbilt or name that team that's the worst team in a league. I don't know really who the worst team in the league is at this stage. Kansas State looks to be as good as anybody. And that's the other game, by the way. It's the TCU-Kansas State game is the one that's in play for Spence and I if we don't go to Oregon on the 22nd. And Kansas State's going to be heard from in a very big way, I think. Look at the way Martinez is playing. It's incredible. The quarterback play that we're seeing, especially in the Big 12 and to some extent in the Pac-12 too. The 2 leagues that are considered on the outside looking in. I think I've told you how I feel about the Big 12, that it's really undervalued and in a stronger position than the Pac-12. But even with all that dirt that's been thrown over the Pac-12, Cam Ward represented Washington State well at USC, though they lost. The play of DTR has been tremendous. And one of the best transfers in the country is clearly Bo Nix at Oregon. My goodness, it's just been incredible to see what's transpired. I think the parity is clear. And I'm not even sure that Georgia or Alabama are that far away from any of those teams. Ohio State is number 1 in my poll solely because they've not played down to the level of competition they play. Neither Georgia or Alabama have consistently played at a level that you would call elite, okay? And that was even with Bryce Young, okay? Even before Bryce Young got hurt, I could make that statement. Ohio State is blowing people out and scoring virtually every time they have the ball against everybody. And even though they've not played a tough game on the road yet, it's going to be a while before they do. When they finally get Penn State, then we'll find out more. But that's the only reason I have them number 1 is that reason. Because I'm not sure that either Alabama or Georgia are that much better than the teams that I've gotten the 4, 5, 6, and 7 holes. I really parity is hitting everywhere, and it's even hitting the so-called pure playoff privilege.
One of those teams, Tim, is Clemson. You and I actually talked to them about them off air. They've got Florida State this week that is a resurgent team that's lost a couple of close games in a row. But I kind of just overlooking that whole side of the ACC. Do you think that's going to get a little bit messier as we go on down through?
Yeah, I do. Like you, and I feel badly for having you lose some cash on NC State. I still believe that Leary, the good news is Leary is healthy and he's going to be able to continue to play. Their defense wasn't bad in that Clemson game. It's not like Clemson rolled past them. I mean, Clemson's defense did a number on NC State offensively. But look, Florida State has now lost some close games, and I still think they're good. I think Norvell has done a good job. There's another big upset out there. I'm thinking Clemson, even though I'm higher on them now than I was at the beginning of the year, I still think that there'll be a hiccup or two, in their futures in the ACC. The differences that I've seen really from Clemson of late more on the defensive side than the offensive side. But yeah, I think the schedule at some point is going to impact them because the ACC teams that really were rollovers in the past aren't anymore. As bad as North Carolina's defense is, okay, it's still, their offense is still good enough to have its back on occasion. It happens. Miami is really bad. They're historically bad. And by far and away worse than I'm sure the coach that left Oregon. I mean, let's face it. Do you think that he would have left Oregon if he had known Miami's situation was as bad as it clearly is? I don't think so. But yeah, that's a key game coming up, and one that I would put in the upset alert category with Florida State and Clemson.
How crazy do you think Alabama?
Go ahead.
How crazy do you think Alabama and Tennessee could get, Tim?
Oh, it could get really crazy. Yeah, it could get really crazy. The number is what, 7.5? And I think if Bryce Young weren't being mentioned by the moles of Nick Saban, I think Chris Lowe has, he always is in Saban's ear, and I trust what he writes. If he believes Bryce Young is going to go, then Bryce Young is going to go, and that's why I think the number is where it is. But every number with Alabama is inflated. Tennessee in that game with LSU, and I don't think what time the game was played had anything to do with it. I know a number of bettors felt that way, but I didn't. LSU's got a lot of work to do on offense still, and maybe some issues with its offense in the locker room as well. But they were bludgeoned by Tennessee. I mean, they were physically dominated by Tennessee. I did not expect that. So I believe the Vols, this is the game and the year that they've been thinking might be the year, even though a lot of people thought Heupel needed maybe 3. It's pretty clear that he didn't need that many years. And I think Tennessee could shock the world this weekend. I really do. And how bad do you think that makes Oklahoma feel? Think about that. What the hiring of Josh Heupel and the way that he left Oklahoma, and now for them to be in this situation, I feel for Venables. I do, because you know how the fan bases can be, man. When you're that bad, and as good as the transfer portal has been to Ole Miss, and the transfer portal has been to UCLA, that's how bad the transfer portal has been to Oklahoma.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that, in that there's, a lot of concern, but there's also a lot of, well, let's give him some time, and he deserves time to, tweak his roster and do all the things that you can do through the portal and NIL and whatnot. But how much of an authentic level of concern do you think there is that's developing that's got some meat behind it, or do you think this is all like we just need to wait some time?
Let me give you it from the foremost authority on Oklahoma football in my mind, and that's Spencer Tillman. Okay. Spencer told me before the game started, while we were out in Pasadena, it's going to be 50-0. And I said, whoa, really? He said, yeah. I said, well, what's the, he said, well, because there's not enough in that recruiting backlog. There's not enough Texas guys that were spurned by the University of Texas. And you got to have that at Oklahoma. They don't have enough of those guys. Everybody's talking about the rivalry game. Not to those players. Those players at the mission-critical positions are transfers. They don't feel or understand or comprehend the rivalry. And from a recruiting standpoint, there's not enough guys that were developmental players that thought they might be 4 and 5 stars that were from Texas that were recruited by Oklahoma. And so, it's not just about Riley leaving. Okay, it's about what didn't come in through this particular recruiting class. For that kind of youthful exuberance and understanding of rivalry to be a factor. And look, there were a lot of people that thought that Dylan Gabriel was the best transfer quarterback after, the first couple of weeks of the season. Clearly he wasn't. And he can't play at the same level that, Lincoln's quarterbacks historically have played. When you look back at, the Heisman candidates 1, 2, and 3 in succession, and then Caleb goes out there with him to USC and they take a few other guys. Those were big losses, and they were clearly not supplanted at OU. I tell you this, fellas, my takeaway is even with Texas trending in the right direction and Oklahoma spiraling in the wrong direction, both of those schools would be very wise to just wait another full year before they go into the SEC. Otherwise, you could be embarrassed.
Yeah, and Oklahoma was embarrassed on Saturday, and the Big 12 just moves on. Doesn't mean Texas won't be a part of a championship game. We don't know, but the Big 12.
Right.
What does it say, Tim, that they just keep moving on? Everyone just said, okay, we are the ones that are left along with the 4 incoming teams. We do what we do.
Yeah, do what you do. And you see what happens. And much applause to my colleagues at ESPN for sending Game Day up to Lawrence. Yep. That was a great scene. And Lance Leipold and his club, I thought, acquitted itself very nicely, particularly after they lost their quarterback as early as they did. And for them to remain competitive and take that game all the way to the end in a tie game until late, it says a lot about them. I mean, it really does. And then you add the consistency and balance that Kleinman has at K-State. What's been done by Sonny Dykes is off the charts, in season 1 at TCU. And, I think that Baylor is just suffering a little from getting too young too quick at certain spots and Shapen maybe trying a little too hard on occasion. I thought that happened in the Oklahoma State game, but I still really like Lake as a quarterback. And I think Baylor's got a lot of W's left in front of them. And certainly they're not completely out of it. I mean, they aren't. Not with the way the Big 12 looks. Anybody can truly beat anybody. And you mentioned Iowa State's record. Matt Campbell has some close wins left in him. And McGuire's story at Texas Tech is it's not going to be long before they have another big win on the road. They've been close already. I thought in Stillwater they'd get boat race. They did not. So, it says a lot. And with Cincinnati doing what they're doing, with BYU doing what they're doing, and the rest of the new additions coming in, man, I think the Big 12 is looking great. I mean, great for the short and long-term future.
Tim, one more question, if you don't mind. Matt Rhule today, not surprisingly, fired by Carolina, did not work out. Had a great run at Temple and a great run, we know, at Baylor. You think he's back in college football next season, or does he just sit back and become an analyst or something in TV for a year?
Well, with a $40 million buyout, he can just get on a yacht. If he so desires. But knowing Matt and the kind of leader and impact guy he is and the way he's wired, I can't imagine that he wouldn't say yes to whatever opportunity jumpstart his heart and his head, because that's just who Matt Rhule is. As I said to some people earlier today that were talking out of the SEC, Auburn's collecting their money now. No way does he go to Auburn. No way. Auburn is I will guarantee you he will not go to Auburn. But everybody else, I think, is in play. And who knows how many more firings will take place between now and the end of the season. Jim Leonard, who's taking over at Wisconsin, we're going to see them this week against Michigan State. And I think Barry Alvarez really wants Jim Leonard to earn that job over the next 7 weeks, and he's already had a big win to put in his hip pocket this past week. And I think that the Big Ten West is still salvageable, and Wisconsin could still make it on that side of the Big Ten Conference. But Wisconsin would line, they would be, I'm sure, in the sweepstakes for Rhule. Nebraska, first and foremost, would be in line. And right now, I'd say potentially those are the two biggest of jobs that are available. But there are going to be more. You know that between now and the end of the year. So if I'm Matt, I just sit back and wait and let my representatives, and he's got a good agent, take a look at everything that's out there. I hope that he learned that he's a college guy. Not so much that he couldn't coach the NFL. I think the problems for Carolina went well beyond his office. Okay, it's the way the management of Carolina and its ownership operates. I think he comes out of this with his reputation still very much intact, although he looks like a college football statistic that didn't work out, like Saban, like Spurrier, and so many others. But I think his reputation as a college coach is still way, way up there, and he'll get whatever job that he wants. And I do think that he'll get back in, despite all of that change that he and his family will have to do whatever they want to do for the rest of their lives. I really hope so, because Matt's good for the college game. He impacts people in ways that affect them for the rest of their lives. And that kind of guy you want coaching at the college level.
Tim, thank you as always. Appreciate it. Enjoy your game this weekend, and hopefully see you at a Big 12 game very soon. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, I've got my fingers crossed for that K-State TCU game. We'll see.
Tim Brando, Fox Sports. someone that brings it every time we have him on, whether we're talking about UCLA and the game he did there, or discussing Wisconsin or Matt Rhule or the Big 12 or Auburn or whoever else in between. This is 365 Sports.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street in Waco. A hidden gem. They're available on DoorDash, by the way, so you can always call them up and get them on there. I guess you can call DoorDash, but you can go on your phone, get on DoorDash, get whatever you need from there, like the best selection of Texas-branded whiskeys in Waco, whether it's TX, Balcones, Devil's River, Garrison Brothers. They've got them all there at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Not to mention their best selection of craft beers. So much great stuff at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, and great customer service, a speedy drive-through window, and they just have cool stuff that they do all the time, whether it's promotions for different brands or just different things that they bring in. If you're looking for something, they can kind of tell you what the distribution is in the state of Texas. Say you moved in from out of town, you want something, they can tell you if they can get it or not. They're great. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, behind the bank.
The wait is over. Richard Carr GMC has the trucks. 2022 GMC Sierras have hit the lot, and they're waiting for you. Sierra trucks offer best-in-class towing, strong steel beds, multi-pro tailgates, and advanced features that make driving a Sierra second to none. Trucks are waiting for you to test drive now. So call now, log in now, or get here now and drive your next truck today at Richard Carr.
Richard Carr, they have the truck for you.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Looking for a great job with great pay and awesome benefits? Genco FCU is hiring. As a longtime Waco employer, Genco focuses on what matters most in our employees' lives, like pay incentives, bonuses, benefits, 401k plans, paid time off, advancement opportunities, medical, prescription, dental, and vision insurance, as well as short and long-term disability. Come join our incredible team today and make Genco your career that will work for you. Apply at gencofcu.org or at any branch location.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
First and goal. He's found 5 different targets. He's going to hand it off. It's Pollard, and he's across for the Dallas touchdown.
It's time for our weekly segment with David Helman of FoxSports.com.
We'll hear from David Helman here momentarily. FoxSports.com covers the Cowboys. I saw David yesterday during the Cowboys game. What a nice win it was in L.A. against the Rams. And one of the questions or comments on Twitter, we're going to be spending a lot of time wringing our hands about what type of contracts the Cowboys might offer Tony Pollard. And then the night the legal tampering window opens in March, he's going to accept an offer that makes us all say, well, bye, laugh out loud. David Helman joins us. David, yeah, I text back and forth with Paul yesterday. I know what Zeke does, and I'm not trying to downplay him, and I'm not one of those that overreacts. But, man, there just seems to be such a dynamic opportunity when he has the ball in his hands.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the most explosive running backs in the league right now. I think at this point, I think we are all comfortable talking about, Zeke Elliott not being the home run hitter that he once was. But I said this after the game as well. Like, I will give the Cowboys credit of managing this tandem, maybe not perfectly, but very well. I think the split yesterday was 22-8 or something like that. I know Tony had 8 carries, and I wouldn't mind seeing that a little bit higher. But I like that split. I think that makes the most of what both of these guys are. Like, Tony has the game-changing speed and the game-breaking ability, but you're not going to get that more than once or twice in a game in the NFL. So you're keeping him fresh by keeping his carry count down, and then Zeke's usefulness is in his physicality and his blocking ability. And you can joke that that's not why you pay him $90 million, and it's true. It doesn't make it any less valuable. It doesn't change the fact that he's much better at blocking than Tony Pollard. And I also think having Zeke Elliott bang against your defense 18 to 22 times a game takes a toll on him. So I got to give the Cowboys some credit for really, in my opinion, playing this the right way. And yeah, I mean, they've got some financial decisions to figure out in the offseason. Who knows if they can afford to keep Zeke at his current number? Who knows if they can afford to make a real offer to Tony Pollard? Those are March problems, but right now I really think they are doing a great job of getting the most out of both of those guys.
Were we all wrong about their offensive line, or are these guys maybe masking some things right now just by the way that they're calling games and the offense is going?
I think both of those things can be true. Mm-hmm. Tyler Smith has obviously answered the bell. Connor McGovern has answered the bell to a degree. They have looked a lot better than I think a lot of us would have given them credit for. But at the same time, you can see the cracks and the flaws. Tyler Smith got called for a holding yesterday on a sack that he gave up to Aaron Donald. The Rams got 3 sacks. Aaron Donald did Aaron Donald things. And that's been there throughout this time since Tyron Smith got hurt. Like, they've had their share of struggles. There have been pre-snap penalties and holding penalties. So like I said, they have been a very pleasant surprise. I don't think anybody is confusing this with some sort of great wall at this moment in time. And there's no time like the future. We're going to have to see, what the injury report says about these Eagles, defensive linemen and how healthy they are and everything. But, the Eagles front, and this is going to be a hell of a challenge for them. So we'll see. If they can hold their own against a unit with this many bodies on it, that would just be another feather in their cap on what I like. Like I said, it's been a pleasantly surprising start.
They were good last year with what they did on defense, and at times they were like just smothering and created the turnovers. This one here, and I'm not one to overreact on anything Cowboys, and I'm not overreacting on much more of what I've seen from a lot of other teams. But this defense right here, yes, they gave up the big play to Cooper Kupp and a couple other things, but my God, David, they seem to have speed at every single position and numbers at depth at each position as well.
Yeah, I mean, the fun thing is, we don't have to overreact and say that they're like the best to ever do it or anything, but like it's not an overreaction to say they're the best that the Cowboys have had in a long, long time. I mean, like a part of that is because the bar has been pretty low, but it's easily the best Dallas defense I've ever seen, and I've been covering the team for a decade at this point. Yeah, they're deep, they're fast. And the way that it all works together, like obviously the pass rush is the headliner, but they're getting top-notch cornerback play. Yeah, Trayvon Diggs got beat a couple times yesterday. The throw to Tutu Atwell, I mean, at the end of the day, I think you have to acknowledge that the other team gets paid as well. Like Matthew Stafford made a perfect throw on that ball. It's not like the coverage was bad. The pass rush is incredible. The interior defensive line has been surprisingly good. I think Anthony Barr and Leighton Vander Esch deserve a lot of credit for playing linebacker well enough to allow Micah Parsons to really focus on the pass rush. And then, I mean, these safeties have been a revelation. Donovan Wilson came into the season as the third safety, and he's been one of their best players over the first 5 weeks of the season. So, yeah, I mean, they clearly have talent. There are 3 all-pros on this defense, which has got to be the most that the Cowboys have had in 20-something years, if I had to guess. And then they have depth as well. Like I said, I don't think you can overreact, at least in the context of the Cowboys. Like, again, I'm not trying to put them with the 2000 Ravens or the 85 Bears just yet, but easily the best Dallas defense that they've had in a minimum of 15 years, but probably more.
Does Dak play this week?
I doubt it. And it's early. I mean, I'll just be very honest. Like I'm not around the way that I used to be. I'm not in Dallas. I'm not in the building. But I've heard whispers, and just based on where he is, based on the fact that he hasn't really started throwing a great amount yet, just makes me think. And again, I mean, they're 4-1. Would it be fun to beat Philly on Sunday Night Football in Philly? Of course, but this isn't a do or die game. That's the beauty of what Cooper Rush has done, is you have a little bit of cushion. Like, they've already won a division game. They've won 2 division games. So, I mean, you can get away with losing this game if you absolutely have to. Again, I get that it would be way more fun to win, but you can get away with it. You can play this thing smart. We'll see what Dak does this week, but like, if you're asking me on Monday if he plays, I don't think so.
Yeah, and I think you keep the thing going. Doesn't mean he won't take over at some point, but Cooper Rush continues to not turn the football over. He did have those 2 picks against Washington and got, I guess you could say a break because of some penalties on the Washington defense. But usually backup quarterbacks just blink the bed. You're not confident with him. What is it about his personality or whatever it is that makes him seem like he's the guy that should be in there?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is his demeanor, right? I mean, he's one of the most even-keeled players I've ever been around. Like, I've joked a million times in the past about how boring he is. And it turns out that maybe that's a really good thing because, again, he wins these games that nobody gave him a shot to win, and he's just as cool and collected as if he just finished practice on Thursday as the backup. Like, he just doesn't seem like a guy who gets very high or very low, which maybe doesn't make him a great quote for those of us in the media, but who cares about that, especially if you're winning football games. So I think that has helped him out a great deal. I think, again, it's easy to hear that he's a backup with no start and assume that he's a rookie. And that's just not true. I mean, he's been in the league since 2017. He's been in this offense for most of the last 6 years. So it's clearly a guy who understands what the coaches want from him and understands the plays that are going to be called. I think that's very valuable. On the flip side, though, I think it's easy to let the narrative run away. And I'm not trying to take credit away from Cooper Rush. He's played amazing. But, I mean, the moments have been there. There were the 2 called back picks against Washington. He fumbled on a sack by Aaron Donald yesterday. He nearly threw a pick to Bobby Wagner. So the moments have been there where it could have slipped up, but it's a credit to him that he hasn't let it happen. And yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody's going to confuse what the Dallas offense did yesterday as a world-beating effort. But if you can do just enough and not turn the ball over, turns out this is the type of defense where that's good enough.
David, this Eagles team has been, I don't know if it's been a super surprise because they did made a lot of moves in the offseason, but the way that they are the only undefeated team left, the way that Jalen Hurts has upped his game, what do you think about them coming into this week?
It's fun. We talk a lot about this on my show. We actually just did a big segment about it today of like, I mean, I'm not stunned that the Eagles are 5-0. Like, I think most people expected them to be pretty good. And then Jalen Hurts has leveled up. Like, he's playing a lot better. I'm not sold that he's one of the game's elites, but he has, it's very obvious the ways in which he has grown. So you combine that roster with a higher level of play at quarterback, and yeah, that's a pretty good recipe. And the thing, I think my biggest takeaway, I don't think the Eagles are the best team in the league, despite their record. They might not even be the second best team in the league. I really, at this moment in time, I put Kansas City and Buffalo on a level above everybody else. But the Eagles might be the most complete team in the entire league, where you look down their roster and it's like they can withstand almost anything. I mean, they've got 5 or 6 quality pass rushers. They've got a wonderful secondary. They've got a good running game. They have one of the best offensive lines in the league. They've got 2 awesome receivers. They've got one of the game's better tight ends. And right now, they've got a quarterback who's pressing all the right buttons. And for that matter, not that I think anything's going to happen to Jalen Hurts, but if something were, Gardner Minshew's his backup, and that's a guy with a lot more NFL experience than your average NFL backup. So it's hard to look at their team and see a definitive weakness. So I think that's probably my biggest takeaway with the Eagles is I don't know if they're the best team, but I think they might be the most complete team, and that carries a lot of weight, especially when you think about the way that the injuries tend to pile up on teams as you get deeper into the season.
I know it could change in 1 week. David Helman, is Mike McCarthy getting credit for the Cowboys being able to do what they've done? I know Dan Quinn gets a lot of credit, the defense and all that, but how much Mike McCarthy getting credit for them ripping off 4 consecutive wins?
I think you're starting to hear that. I think you've been hearing it for a week or so now of just like, well, it's hard to point at exactly what Mike McCarthy does because he's an offensive coach, but he doesn't call the plays. Dan Quinn is kind of the guy that is in charge of this entire defense. So, like, I understand the logic of, like, well, what does Mike McCarthy do? But at the end of the day, when you are the guy, the buck stops with him. Mike McCarthy helped bring in Dan Quinn in the first place. He helped keep him here this past offseason when it looked like he might get a new job. And then again, just steadying the ship. Like, it's hard to quantify, but it is a very real thing, and I think you have to give credit for it. I've pointed this out. Obviously, the 2020 season was bad by any measure. Dak gets hurt. They finished 6-10. But the way that thing started with how atrocious their defense was, and they were giving up 40 points a game and losing back-to-back games, then they lose Dak. The way it all started, it's easy to forget that even as bad as they were, they had a chance to win the NFC East on the last Sunday of the season. Again, I thought that was a situation where he did a really admirable job of steadying the ship. And obviously he's done it. He's done it even more impressively this season, where they're actually stringing wins together and look like one of the NFC's better teams. It's hard to quantify, but I don't know how you don't give the head coach some of that credit when he ultimately has the final say over everything that happens inside those meeting rooms and on Sundays.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you, as always. David Helman, Dallas Cowboys coverage with what he does on Fox Sports, but also now all throughout the NFL with his move to L.A. to be a part of that. By the way, Tony Pollard has 2 50-yard runs in his career. Per ESPN stats information, this from Todd Archer, Ezekiel Elliott's last 50-yard run was in 2016. Now, Zeke
was that
did
his rookie year?
I don't remember the timeline.
Yeah, that was his rookie year.
Well, Zeke used to have that pop. I mean, he would unleash a pretty long one. Of course, they had that line that was good at the time. This offensive line has kind of worked itself out, doing a nice job. I saw some those Twitter clips, the slow motion, the breakdown, the arrows and all that on Pollard's long touchdown run. Biotish Steele. I mean, everybody did their job. Obviously, Martin and how good he is, a Hall of Famer at right guard. Everyone did their job, and they pushed and gave him those lanes, and he was fantastic. I thought he was going to get the ball popped away. He cut just at the right time and then separated from the defensive back that was chasing him down.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you, I had a bad take on this team. I have bad takes all the time. It happens because I'm a human being, and
Does this have?
Yeah, it does. I'm going to admit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll back off. I'm not hedging. I don't lean. I also don't really believe in things. I just think them, and then whatever happens, happens. So I thought the Cowboys, once Tyron Smith were hurt, were going to be an absolute bag of lit dog crap. I thought that was going to be awful because their offensive line hadn't proven anything. Connor McGovern was really bad last year. Terrence Steele just kind of made me nervous in that, you let Lyle Collins go, and he's having to step into a bigger role. Tyler Biadasz wasn't good, and I thought it was going to undo everything. They hadn't done anything about wide receiver, and with Cooper Rush in there, it just seemed like it was going to be bad. They've made it work. Mike McCarthy has leaned into the fact that this is the roster that they built, and it's working. It's totally working for them right now. Now, will it change? I don't know. Sports changes. But
who has been more of a flirt when things look good, the Cowboys or Texas?
The Cowboys have been more of a flirt, I think.
Well, they've had some success. They've won division titles. Yeah, but they are very similar. Fan bases of both, in fact, are the same people in some ways. And that is not to bring up or rip back a scar or whatever you want to call it. It's just about the time you think, then they blow a tire. And again, it's part of the NFL. And I think they look good. And I have probably been, even as a lifelong Washington fan, who for sometimes, man, I just could not fathom. I was one of those that watched them so they'd lose. But I like this team because I like what Micah Parsons doing. The guy played through pain yesterday on one leg, had a couple of key sacks. I like the players and how they play defensively. I think it's real with what Dan Quinn's done. It's a cool story with Cooper Rush. I like Dak, and it's interesting. I think CD's got a little bit of mustard all over him, but you know what? It wasn't Jalen Ramsey pretty much probably in his hip pocket most of the time yesterday. Had the drop pass.
Yeah,
but he was fantastic the week before.
They had 100 total yards passing.
Yeah.
This is what, and like when Dak Prescott comes back, they will have better games passing. Dak's probably going to be fine. It's just how it goes. He had a bad game. They all had a bad game. And when they come back, they're playing better and more confident, so we'll see. But, yeah, Cooper Rush, I mean, they don't really let Cooper Rush loose. But they know how to run things with him.
And on occasion, you'll see them, he'll throw one that's one of those really tough throws and make it, and they keep winning. And while you keep winning, you just enjoy it along the way. 551, Paul Catalina's Top 5 is next on 365 Sports. PettyClinicLowT.com. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be, used to be, and you need to be. In fact, also, Dr. Petty can help you understand everything else that's in your system. A full comprehensive lab work. Results about things that you may not even know exist inside your body, but he does because that's what he does. Not just looking at testosterone level, not just looking at the PSA level, but all of what it means in between. The good stuff, the bad stuff, or what might need to be higher or what needs to be a little bit lower. Dr. Kent Petty can help you become the high-performance man, and 1 out of every 3 or 4 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone. Energy, lethargic, sleep habits, body fat gain, even if you are taking care of yourself and working out, and then, of course, also issues with your manhood inside the bedroom or your sex drive. All of that can be a part of low testosterone. He can help you. Contact him, PettyClinicLowT.com. He will then set you up to get blood work. He will take care of that. Get the results, and if your testosterone level is too low, he can put you in a program to increase it so you can become the high-performance man that you want to be, need to be, used to be at PettyClinicLowT.com.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions. fast friendships, and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Hi, this is Paul Catalina. I recently got engaged to the love of my life, but the most important thing that I had to do before I popped the question was get that perfect ring. And I know nothing about rings. So I went to the wedding ring store, Boozer's Jewelers on Valley Mills Drive. I knew I needed a custom design, and that's exactly what they do. 9 out of 10 of their engagement rings are designed in-house. The entire process took less than a month, and they were great every step of the way. Great options on financing, excellent selection, and talented designers. My fiance and I get nonstop compliments on the ring. I only deserve credit for doing the smartest thing I could, walking into Boozer's and letting them work their magic. Your one-of-a-kind fiance deserves a one-of-a-kind ring, and that's what you get at Boozer's. Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store on Valley Mills Drive.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Hi, I'm Mark Stewart with Bird Colgan Ford. It's that time of year. It's football season. And BK Ford is a proud supporter of the best high school football teams in Texas, right here in Central Texas. BK Ford is proud to sell the #1 truck in Texas, the F-Series truck, led by our leading rusher, the F-150, 45 years in a row. Lock in your best price and rate today by custom ordering your new F-150 at BK Ford. Simple, easy, trusted. Experience better at Bird Colgan Ford.
It's football and tailgate season. If you want product for the grill or smoker, charcoal, seasonings, marinades, sauces, Waco Custom Marketplace is your home to help prep, cook, and enjoy your food. Tailgate must-like brisket, tri-tip, fresh-made burgers, sausage, chicken wings, and if you want steaks, call in your order and pick them up. Bacon wrap fillets or any kind of ribeyes. USDA Select, Choice, and Prime that melt in your mouth. House-made sausage and jerky. Also, Waco Custom Marketplace, a one-stop shop for tailgating, barbecue, cook-offs, and family get-togethers, fundraisers with fair prices to you, the customer. A bakery with fresh baked bread and kolaches. There's cold beer, wine, and soft drinks. Serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. A cut above the rest. Waco Custom Marketplace, open Monday through Saturday at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55.
Top 5 programs where the culture change is working. Chat room, you're about to just lose it.
Are you and Ganoush going to get this together?
I don't know. I hope so. I hope we can be friends one day, even though he sounds super fun to be around. But top 5 programs where the culture change is working. Number 5, Texas. I think what Sark is doing is changing the entitlement culture there. Now, that's a bubble that's bound to pop if they got really good, but you can sustain it for long enough if you have the right guys and you have the right buy-in. I think that's the big difference. Now, outside of that locker room, like I said earlier in the show, is going to be a different thing because the fans of anywhere, and especially at Texas, can get one little snort of that drug called winning, and then all of a sudden they're looking at Vince Young again and they think everything's going to be fine. But I really do like what I'm seeing there. I mean, like the way that they're doing things, the way that he approaches it, the realism that he has about himself as a human being and a coach and moving forward. This is not just about 49-0 against Oklahoma. This is losing game you should have won against Texas Tech and then carrying none of it over against West Virginia. That's what the previous teams would do. They would lose a game they should have won somewhere, and then they would lose 2 more because that loss was still with them. And they're not doing that so far, and they look to be good, and, of course, they've got a stud quarterback.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe had they played somebody with a pulse after that, maybe they might have stumbled a little bit, but they played basically a ghost on Saturday. And look, I'm not taking away from Texas's win. I'm just saying, like, as far as that stumble goes, had they perhaps like faced K-State right afterwards, then maybe that carries over a little bit for Texas. But no, ultimately, I think that the culture in place right now seems to be pretty good. I don't know that the entitlement is gone. I mean, certainly not from the fans, and I don't know that it's really gone from the players either. Just because I feel like, that takes a little bit longer to probably probably root out. But I do think that they just are actually backing up confidence with real stuff. It's not just, well, we're Texas, so we should be winning. Why? Because we're Texas. It's we're Texas, and we should be winning. Why? Because we have a great quarterback. We got a really solid defense. The Gary Patterson hire was good. The offensive line that we went and spent money on basically is performing very well at a very early stage and could blossom into something great. I mean, they're stacked with talent. They've always been, but I do think that the mentality has changed just enough to where, yes, they still feel like they should be hot dog above all others, but they're actually going out and proving why. There's substance to it. It's not just talk, and I can appreciate that.
Yeah, it looks like they're having fun. Of course, winning will do that. I didn't see a lot of pouting when they lost to Alabama. I didn't see any of that, even in the Texas Tech game. That was tough. But that, again, it's like going in and cleaning out a foundation of a home, and there's certain pockets of whatever it might be, and I think Sarkisian is slowly but surely finding those pockets. There's still some there, but I just like the way this team is playing. I really do. I like the way they're – Bijan Robinson split some carries with Roschon Johnson, who's also a phenomenal player. Xavier Worthy's their best wide receiver, but other guys, Whittington, others are getting the ball. I just like the way they're playing. They seem to be having fun playing football.
They've probably played the two worst teams in the conference the last 2 weeks since that loss to Tech. Yeah. So now it's going to be really fun to see. And look, they should be favored to beat Iowa State, I would think, almost pretty handily, quite frankly, because I don't know how Iowa State's scoring. I mean, I don't know how that's happening, but they do have basically what you would consider the meat of the schedule now coming up. And you might have thought that Oklahoma was going to be a part of that, but no, clearly not. Tech, I think, is. I think that, but obviously that was a game that they lost. So a very interesting stretch of games with TCU and K-State and Baylor and Oklahoma State and some teams that can pop up and potentially beat them. But I do like a lot of what they've got going on right now. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, number 4, Kansas. I mean, this is obvious, but it's not only that they're winning and they're not like – they're proving that the early part of the season wasn't a fluke. Even in a loss this week, that was toe-to-toe, nose-to-nose the whole time.
Resiliency, overcoming issues,
The backup quarterback came in and was really good. They had a couple things that didn't work out for them, and TCU is more experienced and a little bit better. Max Duggan is playing free and breezy right now, and that team, we'll talk about them in a second, but Lance Leipold's come in a very short amount of time, made these guys believe that they belong. And I think that's the biggest thing is they don't go in walking out of games like, holy crap, what just happened? Did we really do that? They actually believe they're going to win. Now, their schedule obviously has gotten tougher with TCU. They're going to play Oklahoma this week, leaning towards Kansas in that one, but they're going to play an Oklahoma team that's painted into a corner. You don't know what's going to happen, but I do think this is a team that believes it can win wherever it is, whenever it is. They can do that, and that's special. That's why they've got some juice in this football program now for the first time in a long time.
Leipold also has accountability. There was a player, the receiver, caught a touchdown pass, and he spun the football, did something with the football, got hit with a 15-yard penalty, and Leipold didn't embarrass him on the sideline, but believe me, it was a one-sided conversation, and that's something that I like from him. Every coach probably would have done the same thing, but I kind of like what I saw during that moment.
I've said this line a few times, but belief's a hell of a drug. I mean, look no further than Lubbock. What's really all that different there, other than just believing in the culture behind the scenes? And yeah, there's a great culture at Kansas right now as well, where they go out and they don't think, oh, we're Kansas or oh, poor us or whatever. No, they fully believe they're going to go out there and win the football game. I didn't think that they were going to get blown out by TCU, nor did I think they would blow out TCU. But if you had told me going in that Jalen Daniels was going to get hurt before halftime, I would have been really worried about their opportunity at home to hang. And instead, they went toe-to-toe and kept on swinging and brought in the next guy, Jason Bean, and he just proceeded to have a player of the week type of performance in 2 quarters, basically. And, I mean, that's great culture. That's good depth as well. But that's really just belief and mindset and all of those things. So, yeah, they clearly believe in what they're doing right now. They believe in the process, so to speak, and it's paying off, and you saw that, look no further than Saturday, because a lot of teams could have seen Jalen Daniels go down and just been air out of the tires. And instead, they gave it just as much as they got it and nearly walked away with a really big victory as a result of it.
Yeah. Here's a little bit of a behind the scenes. I do these well before the show, well before I know anyone who's going to say anything about me in the chat room.
5 minutes ago.
I did not change it. Emery did it probably at noon today. Number 3, UCLA.
You changed this 5 minutes
I did not change this at all. Please try and help me out here, Smokey.
All right.
Be a team
before
player.
the show begins.
Well before the show. Well before the show. It's Chip Kelly has changed. UCLA was a moribund football program. They were not good. Their history is so far off from its basketball. Like, they're a basketball school. Their football history is not great at all. And Chip Kelly's come in there and started to make believers out of people, including me, who, yes, I thought maybe the game was passing him by. He was 25-26 leading up to that point at UCLA. I thought he was going to be about a 500 coach. He's got a great quarterback in DTR. That's going on there, and they are changing things. What happens in the rest of the 7 games of the season? I don't know, but they are set up to win, given that they're, the 2 hardest opponents are Oregon and USC, and we'll see what happens in those games. But Stanford, Arizona, Arizona State, and Cal, they should win those games. This should be a team that should be 9-3 or 10-2, no problem down the line based on how they're playing right now, and they're for real. I'm saying they're for real. I don't know how long it's going to last, but I believe in UCLA, and I back off a previous take that I had, which I do all the time as a nearly 20-year host of a sports talk show.
Yeah. If all my predictions if I had slices on my body from all my bad predictions and comments, I would bleed to death.
Well, I mean, so.
He's been there 6 years, so it's not like it's been some miraculous turnaround for them. But, it is a great showing so far. They've got, great weapons offensively, and clearly he's still one of the best when it comes to, offensive football. Defensively, they played well enough. I'm not, sold on them as a defense, but I do think they're good enough all around to, play with pretty much, anybody that they're going to have to play with moving forward. And, beyond that, I don't know. There's a lot of season left to go. I could, definitely see them winning 10 games. I could see them, dropping a couple more than maybe expected right this very moment. But they're firmly in the mix. Deserve to be talked about, in the big picture, and certainly one of the favorites out west right now. So, let's see how the rest of the way goes. But, if I'm a UCLA fan, I'm very happy with what I've seen so far.
I was surprised at how well they played, even though it was a high-scoring game, and they're going to give up some points in this day and age of college football. I had read a little note about them. They got a couple of 2 or 3 important transfers in defensively, and you could tell, one of them, I think, from North Texas, and you could tell there's a little bit more edge, that term grit that Eric Mateos uses on his offensive line, although they need that too at Baylor, back for this week. There's just something there that I had not seen. They were always soft as toilet paper on defense, and it doesn't appear to be the case.
Also, let's not get it twisted about Chip Kelly. He's won 0 national titles. So it's not like this is Urban Meyer, going to another place. Like, this is a guy who's not won it yet, and we'll see if he ever does. He had some really good teams at Oregon that didn't finish. Mark Helfrich was the one who took him to the first CFP game. Chip wasn't the coach there then. So, anyway, number 2, Tennessee. This was a program that could not make good athletic department decisions as a whole. They were not doing it, and they were taking their diamond and just throwing it in the toilet all the time in this football program that was the national champions in 1998. They had a championship, and then they have they not only they didn't really dip. They just took it and threw it in the garbage. It was really bad what was going on at Tennessee. Coach after coach after coach after coach. And then you bring in Danny White at AD and Josh Heupel, and all of a sudden this team feels like they did back in the 90s. And can they sustain it? Who knows? But right now I think Josh Heupel's done a great job changing the culture there in Knoxville.
Yeah, done a really good job. Alabama will be a huge test for them. Hendon Hooker's a great player. Been surprising to see the wide receiver from USC in Texas.
Oh, yeah.
His name I'm missing right now. We talked about him all the time. But, You know who I'm talking about if you followed recruiting. Tennessee's wide receiver that was at Texas, Brew McCoy. There we go. Yeah, he's played particularly well. Good to see that he's got a little bit of that still left in his tank. But I've been very impressed. And, the more Tennessee wins and the more Oklahoma loses, the more I'm sure you'll hear about, Josh Heupel and, his ties to Norman and all of that. But he's got a great thing going on in Knoxville right now.
I love it. Tennessee, Alabama this week. A great game. I can't wait to watch it.
Yeah. And number 1. TCU. This was a program that needed a culture change. Gary Patterson was very successful there, but his tension, and this was good for both of them. Gary Patterson seems to have maybe the perfect job for him at Texas where you lock him in a room and tell him to work up a game plan, and TCU can breathe a little bit. Gary Patterson was hearing all the noise. Sonny Dykes isn't like that. Sonny Dykes is way more laid back, a lot like his father, taking things as they come as opposed to fighting some grand conspiracy theory. TCU is smooth. They're fun to watch. They're completely different.
Yeah, completely different in what way? And as far as like
the way that they approach things, the way that it's just like Max Duggan was a psycho over there. Like they had to calm him down a ton of times. He looks to me like he just rolls with the punches now.
Yeah, they definitely seem like they actually enjoy playing football versus kind of how it felt at times under Patterson. But they've done a great job. I mean, I am curious to see the recruiting and how that continues because you can list off a lot of guys off that roster. None of those guys were Dykes guys. Like Darius Davis and Tay Barber and Max Duggan and Quentin Johnston. And all these cats were, I'm sure there were some transfers I'm not thinking of, but a lot of the main players that we're talking about were Gary Patterson, recruited guys. So he inherited a very good roster is what I'm saying. And I was curious on how it would, blend at least early on. And it's been magnificent. It's been terrific. Definitely a close call there in Lawrence this past weekend, but to their credit, they were able to fight and get themselves a big-time win. Even though it seemed like Jason Bean was going to be this Cinderella type of story, that you don't see anywhere but college football. It feels like these, unique stories like that. But, instead it was a great win, and they fought that off, and the sky's the limit for them. They're a really good football team, and Duggan's playing exceptionally well, and I still think that Chandler Morris injury, even though Steven earlier said that he thinks they would still be playing this way, I'm not so sure, man. I think they could still be unbeaten and maybe have played pretty well, but I do think Max Duggan has made a big difference for them, and I'm not so sure Chandler Morris just does the exact same thing that Max Duggan's been doing. But regardless, they've got great options at quarterback. They got great weapons. They're playing solid on defense. So, yeah, very, very surprised in some ways and excited for, what Sonny Dykes has going right now.
They are a fun story. Those are 5 good ones. Appreciate that. And Paul does those about 5 minutes after the chat room opens. Just joking.
Yeah.
I
just got accused of defending Urban Meyer for the first time. So.
Oh, my God.
I should probably just go ahead and throw an honorable mention out there to save y'all a headache and say Texas Tech is worth just a quick nugget there.
Yeah, and USC, but it's the top 5.
It's a top 5, not 9.
Yeah.
But somebody's got to be left out. In this day and age of America, somebody will be offended when they are. Okay, that's enough. Thanks to Jack McKenzie, Emery Winter. Thanks as well to Jacob Wilson, Craig Smoak, and Paul Catalina. Thanks to all of you on the chat room. Yeah, all of you. And also the text line today. One of the things Steve Frogfan sent in earlier today. Thanks for the segment on Earl Campbell about life. Cautious about my frogs. We still have to face the gauntlet. Thank you, our sponsors. We're back again tomorrow. Don't forget Sports Tonight at 10:30 tonight on the CW channel. Good night, 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.